Hello everybody and welcome back to the T.H.O. Movie Reviews podcast, the show where we bring you passionate, honest, and insightful film criticism. I'm your host, Bennett Campbell Ferguson, and I'm here today to do a commentary on Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight in honor of its coming 10th anniversary. And I've got two of my wonderful colleagues to help me out, starting with Patrick Belin. Patrick, looks like you got some green tea there. Are you feeling fueled up for a little Nolanizing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I always like diving back into Nolan's films. I'm a pretty big fan of Batman, and of course, it's an amazing film. So I'm excited to see it again.
And also here we have Jim Newman. Jim, I remember the first time you and I met, we were actually talking about Heath Ledger's brilliant performance in this movie. It comes full circle.
I didn't remember that was the subject of the discussion that we had, but I remember that we had a great discussion, and when you called me up and let me know that you wanted me to talk about this movie, it's curious that you're that far into my head, because this movie has really never left me since I saw it.
Same here.
It is in my viscera, kind of. I don't know.
Well, let's dive on into it then. How's this going to work? We're at the menu right now. Hopefully you'll watch the movie and watch along with us. To make that possible, we're going to count down to pressing play. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, play. So, in a second, I want to ask you guys a little bit about what it was like the first time you saw this movie. But before we do that, I want to get a head start, because I have a lot of yakking to do about the opening shot, and it's going to take a bit. So I want to start even over the logos, because I have a lot to say. There's a saying that, the first scene of your movie should be what your movie is about, and or should express what your movie is about. Christopher Nolan did that one better and had the entire first shot be what the movie's about, because if you remember, the first shot is a very sleek-looking skyscraper, and then a gunshot from inside shattering the glass. And it's really this transition from order to chaos, and that's what the entire movie is about. And I think it's fascinating right from the beginning. He knows what he wants this movie to be. And he's very precise, not in a fussy way, but in a thoughtful way, I think. And I actually packed all that in before the first shot came up, so that was not that bad.
Good for you, man.
What did you guys think of this movie the first time you saw it? Because I have to admit I was not super into it the first time I saw it, and I came back to it in later years and was kind of a late Dark Knight obsessive. But did you guys fall in love with it pretty quickly?
I'm not sure that I've ever fallen in love with this movie. I say that it stays with me, and the cliche would be to say that it stayed with me because it's so dark. But really, I have to appreciate the absolute artistry of a filmmaker that can take film and turn it into pure emotion. Of course, he had that great performance by Heath Ledger to help me get involved, but it is one of the most unsettling movies I have ever seen, really.
I agree. Patrick, what about you?
Well, to go back to your question, yes, I did fall in love with it pretty quickly, being a big fan of Nolan and the first film. But going back to this opening shot, I think it was, I would have to agree with you that it was very well done, because if this was the other side of Batman Begins and what is Batman, it's difficult to know what is Batman without his great antagonist. So they had to start with the Joker here. So I thought that was a very good choice.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. I think it's kind of interesting. The first Batman Begins is like a very sort of a romantic movie, not in terms of the romance itself, because the central romance is actually, to be honest, I don't think that compelling, but romantic in style, like very shadowy, and it's really about this kind of romantic hero's quest. He travels the world, he searches for himself. Whereas the Joker dominates this movie. This movie is not that romantic. And even you see this right here, the lighting is very bright, very like even, not that kind of, beautifully noirish gloom that really defined Batman Begins. And, here, as we'll see in a sec, the Joker is the one dominating the frame, not kind of Bruce Wayne's emotional journey.
One of the things that strikes me about this movie early on is the design of those masks is so supernatural. I mean, clowns with those expressions on their face. It's almost a foreshadowing of the whole movie.
Yeah.
What a clown is or can become.
Yes.
Those are wonderful. And the running gag here, which is that everyone is double-crossing everyone else, and it's played like comedy. Somebody...
There's a little bit of a Tarantino vibe.
Well, there is, and there's also a comic film vibe. It's almost...
Well, it's like one person slipping on a banana peel right after another.
Bam, bam, bam.
There's a rhythm, yeah.
There's a comic pace, even though it is heavy. Oh, God, Ledger's so beautiful in this.
Well, that shot that we saw a couple seconds ago from him behind, one thing you notice is that he's, you can see it again here too, he's a little bit hunched, and usually like, a hunched character, that's a sign of weakness. Somehow, though, it makes him look more powerful. Like he's kind of like looming over everyone, like a gargoyle or something.
The word is that he was mimicking a hyena.
I did not know that.
That is a body awareness technique actors use called the Alexander technique, where you change your body form and it helps you do the performance you want. He was a hyena.
Can I just also point out that what I just realized a couple of days ago is that this movie is PG-13.
Yeah.
Considering the gravity of the violence and the depth of the violence, and they were able. Christopher Nolan, the way he directed this, it came out to a PG-13 movie. He didn't have to resort to the usual, visual violence point that a lot of action filmmakers tend to go to with this type of movie.
Yeah. Well, and I think like it's kind of like I'm reminded of the scene in the Dark Knight Rises where one of the many. There are many scenes in the Dark Knight Rises where Tom Hardy breaks somebody's neck, and you never quite see it. He doesn't like show it or show like blood spurting out of people's veins, and yet there's something so unsettling. Like you really feel the horror of the violence. I remember people kind of whining when Dunkirk was announced it was going to be rated PG-13. It's like, no one's going soft, and it's like you look at how as intense his movies are, blood and gore would be superfluous.
Yeah, exactly.
It gets under the radar, I think, because at least in American culture, there are certain kinds of human cruelty that don't raise a red flag with people. And some of it is the double crossing, how a guy would blithely say, "Hey, where is everybody?" That gag, and then shoot the last remaining person, which is...
And he almost shoots them without looking. It's very casual. It's
a beautiful shot because you see his arm. It's almost like you don't know what happened, but then he moves and you can see his arm is extended. Well, I'm sure they redid that lots of times. Gary Oldman was good in this movie.
Very much so, yeah. This whole sequence here, I think, is a very kind of classic Nolan sequence where he's sort of like overlapping lots of different locations. You see the guys, seeing the bat signal, like, I don't want to, pull this job off tonight, man, and then you see the cops, then you cut to this, you see the mayor on TV, He has a way of like juggling a lot in a way that I think is very exciting, and he never lets you get lost.
I noticed the intercutting. He does that all through the movie.
Yeah. Lee Smith, as editor, of course, finally won a much-deserved Oscar for Dunkirk, which...
Did he edit this one?
He edited this one as well, yeah. He didn't get nominated, though, which I think is a real shame. I really like, too, this way they bring back Cillian Murphy from the first film. It's just there's there's something really funny about that. Like he's like a bad penny. Like he always turns up somehow.
Wait, that wasn't actually Cillian Murphy though, right?
It is. It
Is
is.
it?
That's him. Yeah.
It's in the credits.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You'll see him with the mask on in just a sec.
Oh, for the longest time I thought that was just one of the wannabes.
Yeah, it
didn't
actually
really look like him.
Yeah, you just see him for a brief second. But yeah.
Interesting.
And I just love this moment that's coming up here. One thing I think people forget about Christopher Nolan is that he, even in his early films, he truly is an entertainer. He likes to, really rouse an audience, get them pumped up, and this reintroduction of Batman here, he builds up to it so like suspensefully and with such care and energy, and it's you'll see any second he's just going to appear. And there he is. It's so perfect, like he just out of nowhere punches the guy like the.
Well, he's a ninja. He's supposed to come out of nowhere.
He is. There's that line, theatricality and deception can be powerful agents. Well, that's Christopher Nolan. He's all about theatricality and deception.
And it's a shame that we're watching this on mute with subtitles because I have to say that the score in this is phenomenal.
To die for.
I was just watching this the other day, and wow, Hans Zimmer really knocked it out of the park with this.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
So fun fact about the score. On the first film, Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard collaborated very, very closely. Like they would work on like the same pieces together. On this one, they both returned, but they actually worked separately with Howard handling kind of the Harvey Dent theme and Zimmer handling the Joker theme. Yeah. And so you notice it creates it creates a real like kind of a divided feel that I think is very interesting and very appropriate for the movie really. And I mean we all remember that that Joker theme like that white noise. I mean,
oh yeah,
genius.
I like how the filmmakers here, not just Chris Nolan, but the photography and the editing, they treated it like just a normal film. They didn't.
Yes.
They didn't treat it like some kind of frivolous child's movie at all.
Yeah.
They gave these characters a lot of respect, and I think that really shows in the filmmaking here, and that's something that I really like about it.
Well, you look at this scene. You look at I mean, yes, he's in a bat suit, but Commissioner Gordon here, he looks like a character in any normal cop or gangster movie, and that setting, that bank vault, there's. Again, it's not stylized. It ain't Tim Burton's Gotham. I mean,
exactly.
It's not even really Gotham at all. It's Chicago.
Does anybody know how Christian Bale felt about? Michael Caine, so amazing.
Oh yeah. Oh,
he was perfect in this.
Did Christian Bale feel underused? Because he seems underused in this movie.
Yeah, he was a. Outwardly, he was very chill about it. I don't know how he really feels, because I mean, this is a guy. I mean, this is the guy who was famous for shouting on the set of Terminator Salvation of all movies, "What don't you fucking understand?" to the cinematographer. I mean,
yeah.
I don't think he's
not
as serene as he likes to.
No.
Yeah. But it's kind of funny. There are only two superhero trilogies that had the same lead actor and same director for all three movies. It's the Dark Knight trilogy and Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy, which I'm a massive fan of. And I think, but there's a real difference. I mean, there's many differences, but one of them is that Sam Raimi did those Spider-Man films all in one go, one after the other. Nolan, took time off from Batman to do movies like he did Inception and The Prestige, and even with Batman, I almost felt like he wasn't coming back to Batman because of Batman, but because of different aspects of that world that interested him.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
Because Batman Begins, feels like a totally different world than this one. The Dark Knight Rises also feels like a totally different world. Batman Begins is a hero's journey. This is a crime epic. The Dark Knight Rises is a war epic, kind of like Dr. Zhivago, as Nolan pointed out. And I think it's kind of fun that the same director could find so many different ways of approaching this one saga. It's extraordinary.
It's really hard to imagine this movie, though, without Heath Ledger making the choices that apparently he made himself in how to play that perfectly psychotic
goodness.
malevolence writ large.
I know this sounds like exaggeration, but I would have to put Heath Ledger's portrayal of the Joker as one of the greatest masterpiece performances of all time.
No question.
I mean, just watching it 10 years later, I'm still blown away by it. I was like, oh my god, this is one of the best performances I've ever seen.
He got Best Supporting Actor.
Yeah.
And he was 28, but he did not live.
I know, right?
It's
a shame.
Know that he got the Academy Award.
It's maddening, is what it is, to do something that masterful and then you don't get to reap the rewards.
I had no idea he had it in him. I mean, he was just this guy
how
with
can
nice
you
tail
predict
or whatever, like just another heartthrob, whatever you want to call it. Like
he was Mr. Down to Earth, Brokeback Mountain.
Yeah, this guy just came out of nowhere and pulled this out of his back pocket. Like, wow, that's pretty freaking amazing.
It is, and Christopher Nolan did not come to him. Heath Ledger came to Christopher Nolan.
Yeah,
Heath Ledger knew he could deliver, and it's really kind of amazing.
He wanted it really bad. Apparently, he secluded himself in a hotel room. And he imagined how he wanted it to be.
It's extraordinary.
Craziness.
By the way, and we'll get to that later. That the video that the Joker sends to the news of him torturing the wannabe Batman. Heath Ledger shot that all on his own.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
It was and I mean, when you think it's like the ultimate kind of method thing, it's like, well, the Joker shot him himself, so Ledger became the Joker.
Right.
It was the only way to do it. But it's even more amazing when you think like, wow, like he shot something for a Christopher Nolan movie, and Christopher Nolan was like, yeah, I'll take that. Christopher Nolan, one of the most like persnickety, visually savvy directors, arguably in the history of Hollywood.
That's when brilliance recognizes brilliance.
You
have to admire him totally, because he took his ego out of that and said, yeah, you go ahead, Heath.
Okay, so now we're at the DA's office and we're reintroduced to Rachel Dawes, the recast Rachel Dawes.
Yes.
I have to admit that I was never 100% on board with Maggie Gyllenhaal's performance here.
That's funny you bring that up, because I was just thinking about it the other day, and I have a lot of reasons why I'm not on board with it, but why? I'll get to that. But why weren't you into her performance?
Why? Because there's nothing super special about Katie Holmes' performance in Batman Begins, but she did introduce the role and the part, and she introduced the character of Rachel in her way, and I felt that the filmmakers for the Dark Knight had a responsibility to kind of take some of those elements into the second part. I have nothing against Maggie Gyllenhaal.
No, she's a wonderful actress.
But I felt that Katie Holmes brought a certain underlying fragility to Rachel that Maggie didn't really bring into the Dark Knight right away. Yeah. I think she kind of redeemed herself towards the end of her character arc when she was about to get blown up a little bit. But that should have been there from the beginning. And I felt that it wasn't. And I was just mentioning to a friend the other day that if I was casting director, I think I would have approached maybe Michelle Williams to play the role.
Yeah. I think Michelle Williams would have been a more like seamless transition from Katie Holmes, because she has that kind of
she's played that role so many times.
Yeah,
she has a neurotic tone to her that Gyllenhaal doesn't. She's a little too bland for this, maybe, is what you're saying.
Just not I mean, she's fine in some of the movies that she's done. She's just a little miscast.
I agree that she has a good energy sometimes, but she isn't neurotic. She's healthy.
Yeah, she's good in certain other roles, not
Yeah.
necessarily the Rachel role.
Well, here's another problem. I mean the love interest has sort of become an obligatory part of any
agree with you.
superhero legend, and
Yeah.
the problem is that there are some superhero movies that don't do it because they have to. They actually show real interest in bringing meaning to that relationship. Again, Spider-Man.
The new Spider-Man.
Or I would go with the old one. I think Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst, like her character is really central to his character's development, and I think that was powerful. But but also chemistry is a factor, and I don't know what it was, but I don't think Christian Bale and Maggie Gyllenhaal were into each other at all.
No, what sort of chemistry happened in Batman Begins didn't carry over into The Dark Knight. And that's precisely my
because you're right.
point.
There was chemistry in Begins. Yeah.
There was.
And that most recent Spider-Man, I mean, he sneaks out to see his babe, and he has
Which the Spider-Man, the one with Tom Holland?
yeah, where he's crawling across the ceiling, getting back into his place and stuff. She's integral to the plot here, except for dropping out the window. There's that great gag where Batman says, "Let her go." And
Yes, yeah. Very poor choice of words.
Poor choice of words until they have that great drop.
I wanna say one more thing on the whole love interest thing. I think in The Dark Knight Rises, you had a major improvement with the chemistry between Bale and Anne Hathaway.
Oh yeah,
for
sure.
You could just tell, they were having fun with each other, or at least they acted enough to make it seem like they were.
Hathaway's not quite as laid back a personality, it feels like, as Gyllenhaal is.
And she also, I don't know, different actors I think are suited for certain directors as dialogue more than others.
Maybe that's true too.
And Hathaway, there's a reason she came back in Interstellar. She was born to say Nolan dialogue, that kind of philosophical dialogue that's really wordy, but just has an edge of dry wit. Some actors are born for it, some aren't. Aaron Eckhart handles the Nolan dialogue very well, and I hope they do another picture together someday.
I was amazed at how fast he says his lines. I mean, it's almost like a comic monologue the way he talks.
Well, he's very, like that courtroom scene. You believe in him as kind of this slick guy who knows the right thing to say and can turn the
just
room
whip around. Yeah.
This is a funny gag here with what if harder be done does the game cruise. But you almost believe he could because he's so intimidating. Except he's not a ninja.
This movie has a bunch of aphorisms in it, which I probably should have written down, but one is, die young as a hero or live long enough to become a villain. That's one of those great lines that...
Yeah.
Oh my god, this part is so freaking amazing. When the Joker makes his debut.
This scene is really astounding.
Yeah, another one of his aphorisms is going to come up here where he says...
Alright, if you're good at something, don't do it for free.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
If you're good at something, don't do it for free.
And, the really amazing thing is, this whole scene... The Joker's just totally fucking with these guys, and they don't even he's saying hire me to kill Batman, and they don't even realize that he doesn't even want to kill Batman or intend to at all. And they believe it because partly because they're stupid, but also because he's really damn convincing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see Ramirez, you see that guilty look there. Of course, as we find out later, she's been bought out by Maroney, Eric Roberts' character, and Nolan is such a brilliant storyteller, putting that little guilty look in to kind of, so that when it's revealed, it feels like, aha, it's not out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And this scene is great. This scene is jumping around in time, and you don't even realize how much until the very end. Again, it's like it's almost like a joke, almost like a punchline. And here we go.
Yeah.
Looming there.
And that ha 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 ha, you know, that not even laughing laugh is great.
That kind of like that's sort of like mocking laughter.
Yeah, you're so playing with him. Oh, he's gonna do his magic trick. This is so grim, man.
This is
And
PG-13.
PG-13.
Holy
Ta-da.
No, this is how you know that the MPAA's standards are kind of askew.
Yeah.
It's like you know, like a theoretically a 4-year-old could have bought a ticket to see that.
Exactly.
I know. It's like they didn't even blink. Oh well, just a human getting a pen in his eye.
Yeah.
Wow, his line delivery in this is super perfect.
It is. Oh man.
And the way he used his voice, he went up and down, was also something that he practiced, I guess.
Oh yeah.
For this part.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't
Going up
even
and
know
down
how he
an
got
octave.
that voice. That's extraordinary. One thing I think you notice is like. There's that moment when Gamble calls him a freak, and he kind of looks down, like he actually does look kind of hurt, and there are these. He's such a psychopath, such a kind of unfathomable monster, and yet there are these little touches
And that
of
makes it more
humanism.
real. It makes it real that he reacts that way.
Yeah, it makes you believe in him.
Otherwise, it would be plastic. you know?
Yeah.
But he's really hearing other people say stuff.
I find it kind of funny that Lau just turns off the TV, I'm just not going to listen
I
to any
know,
of this
that
anymore.
is interesting.
It's like, pal, don't you want to like see what's going to happen? This might be relevant to your whole operation.
My goodness, if you're any sort of connoisseur of good acting, I swear Heath Ledger's Joker is like candy.
Yeah. Well, a very extreme and eccentric performance like this, I think it's very hard to do it and not see the gears turning. You don't see the gears turning at all.
No.
You
I mean, this
is
a character. Like Nolan is like filming a documentary film and just filming this thing.
Yeah.
What I have to keep in mind is that Nolan wrote a lot of this. He was definitely in control. Heath Ledger, he took it and ran with it, but it's both of their visions.
Well, Script Magazine did an incredible piece on the screenplay for this movie.
Oh,
and
tell me.
It's one thing I learned, and this is really fascinating, is Christopher Nolan and David S. Goyer wrote the basic story. They did it on I think cork boards, and they used five boards, one for each act. Yes, this actually is a 5-act story when you think about it.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is.
It's a complex story.
And then Jonathan Nolan, of course, his brother, wrote the first draft. He and Christopher Nolan collaborated, and this is what I think is really interesting, and this is one of the things that makes Nolan truly an auteur. Eventually, not because he was unhappy with his brother's writing, but just because he really wanted to make the material his own, he cut his brother out of the process and wrote the final draft all alone.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he was vibing off what his brother had done, and I think that's really interesting because it demonstrates an understanding that some things are going to be very personal choices, and Jonathan Nolan came up with a brilliant idea with the fairy bombs sequence at the end, but in the end, this is a Christopher Nolan movie, and he had to encode his DNA into it.
Yeah, of course, the directors have to have their own overriding control of their films.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, when I watch films that feel like they're all over the place, it's probably because they didn't have a strong director.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with that so much. Yeah.
Well, we were talking about Marvel earlier.
I was gonna say this earlier, but I didn't want to go too off topic. I was gonna be like, man, after watching this, how can I watch Infinity War?
I know, for our listeners who don't know, we're recording this the day Infinity War
comes
We're
out.
gonna be like really spoiled, like, you know.
I know. I'll be like groaning the whole time.
Because I mean, I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say that the entirety of Infinity War will not be as compelling as one single shot in this movie.
Whoa! All right.
I expect
Make
to
of that what
be
you will.
entertained at the very least, and then go home and forget about it.
Exactly.
You know, in a movie with Michael Caine, still having Morgan Freeman, and they're both doing the same thing. They're talking about the technology and advising him, and they don't seem redundant to each other.
No.
They both seem like they completely fit, and I love that this movie is so inclusive in that way, that those really unique characterizations fit so well.
Well, you people, I mean, and rightly so, we talk a lot about like how these movies are quite grim, and they certainly are, but you know, you really need those moments of levity, you know, like with Morgan Freeman. Like, I just love that bit about, you know, we talking Rottweilers or Chihuahuas, and like Christian Bale like just gives him this look, like, you know, like, why are you messing with me?
Yeah,
you know,
right,
and it's just it's fun, you know. And this scene, I mean, this is evidence of on the boat here. This is Nolan's Bond fandom coming to play.
Yeah, there were echoes for sure.
On Her Majesty's Secret Service is one of his favorite films of all time.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So is The Thin Red Line, but that's not referenced here at all. Then you would have a scene where Batman would be, you know, staring at a blade of grass for 20 minutes. No, I love The Thin Red Line. It's a masterpiece.
Speaking of which, I would love to watch that again if they re-release it in theaters.
I hope they do. I've never seen it on the big screen, and man.
Was it originally released in 70mm? I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Because it seems like a film that should be in 70mm.
It should be, yeah. If there's anything in the film that should be in 70mm, I mean,
right.
Wow.
I would love to see that.
I would love that too, man.
When he tells the stories, and it's never the same story about how he got the scar.
Right.
Yeah. You know, one thing I think it's interesting to remember is that this movie, came out after Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy had ended, and those movies really played into the idea that the villain has to have an origin story, and it was a way of like humanizing the villain and, you know, making them more compelling characters. But you know, even a good trope, you know, can grow tired.
Oh,
and, you know, I mean, which is why, you know, with this movie, it was time to push things further and have a villain who is just really a mythic, mysterious figure who kind of appears and disappears, and you don't need to know anything about his horrible childhood, and they have fun joking around with that whole bit, you know, like, my father was a drinker and a fiend, you know? I mean,
why so serious?
And it's like, it's fun. It makes a mockery of that whole convention, and I enjoy that very much.
Oh, here, he's just relentless.
Yeah.
Now, you guys kill each other for me.
And I love that kind of giddy, like, you know, thing of like, which of you would like to join our team? Like, it sounds like it's like, let's all go play on the playground, you know? It's so casual.
You know, and that keeps that theme going. It's relentlessly cruel and inhuman how he manages to create these situations where death is the outcome and pain is the undercurrent all the way.
He tries to make people become the worst version of themselves.
And he succeeds, which is the point, I guess.
By the way, I just love that we have these Hong Kong scenes here, because just the Hong Kong architecture in this film is so like sleek and massive and futuristic and really, I mean, even more striking than the Gotham City architecture, and it really like opens up the film and takes it to kind of an epic level. And I remember when the New Yorker reviewed this movie when it came out, they called the whole Hong Kong thing expensively meaningless, and I I think it's actually incredibly integral. You know, I think you
Yeah.
have this kind of fun last blast of, you know, Batman going on a mission and winning before everything goes straight to heck.
I think it does something very interesting to the storytelling, because if you think of Batman in the comic books, Gotham City, this fictional place, by inserting Hong Kong here, it kind of takes that outside of it.
Yes.
So, I mean, Hong Kong
Yes.
is a real city, and it makes Gotham seem like a real city somewhere in the United
Yes,
States.
absolutely.
You know? Even though it looks like Chicago, it could be Gotham, right? So,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Well,
and
I mean,
if
that's
you notice, like, even the cinematography, it's not very dark, it's not very noirish, how you would expect Batman. This is filmed like just a regular crime drama. Or
absolutely. It's very clean looking, very very simple and elegant.
Right.
And I love that you bring up that idea of you know, it makes Gotham feel more like a real place, because Nolan actually talked about that, even going back to Batman Begins, talking about, like, you know, well, when you've got, you know, there's people so far away from Gotham, mentioning Gotham, it's not this villagey place. It's, you know, it's a part of a broader world.
Because if you're going to spend all this time and money, I mean, making it a live action movie, you should try to infuse some realism into it.
Yes.
Otherwise,
yes,
what's the
yeah.
point? Just make it an animated movie.
Yes, yeah, I agree.
Which they've done so many times.
Well, you know, yeah, and I mean, I know that, you know, ultimately, like, there was kind of a backlash against this sort of aesthetic with, you know, people saying, you know, like, why can't, you know, comic book movies be more comic booky? But for me, like, this idea of just sort of treating it like any other movie, I feel like, well, that helps me believe in the character and believe in them as a human being who's not an action figure, but as someone who has, you know, wants and desires. And if they have wants and desires, well, then a lot more is at stake when, you know, they put on the suit and start, you know, fighting for their life.
And when you're an artist, I mean, when there is such a backlog of information about how to do a Batman cartoon or a comic book or a live action film, you want to push it if you're talented enough, and this guy succeeded.
Yeah. You want to, I mean, with something with that kind of, as you say, a long backlog, well, you want to show people something they haven't seen before, and, you know, I think there's a lot of things in this movie that, you know, Batman fans hadn't seen before.
Which, going around the internet, I found out that in addition to Heath Ledger, the best thought of Joker is Mark Hamill.
Interesting.
Yeah, because of his...
Of course, voiced him on the
his hysteric shriek when he laughs. And he's good. He really is good.
Just look at the set design. I mean, just all the glass, you know, all the smoothness. That's so much what this movie's about. Like, it's the first one, even though it was more modern, it was still kind of gothic.
Well, the contrast also helps establish this idea of Gotham being this crumbling city in decline.
Yes, that's such a great point.
Being overrun with crime and whatever.
Yeah, that doesn't really help. It doesn't seem like that it's in a different world where everything's tumbling down. That isn't the world that most people experience. So.
Yeah, exactly.
The sound when he was flying there was great, by the way, with the bat wings. There was just something about the ambience of him soaring that seemed really realistic to me.
Yeah, you can't even hear like a touch of like a flutter.
Kind of.
Like
it's almost like bats flying. Yeah.
By the way, Richard King won an Oscar for his sound editing here.
Oh, he did?
He did, yeah.
Another I thought that occurred to me the other day was this sequence. This is very nitpicky. Obviously, you have to suspend disbelief, but in the real life, this would never have been possible. The Chinese government would have deployed fighter jets right away.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But whatever, it's a comic book movie. I'm being nitpicky here.
No, but yeah, I mean, it's a fair point. I mean, they probably would have shot down that plane right away.
At least force them to land, you know.
Would that skyhook thing even work, or is that, you know, I don't know.
I'm pretty sure the skyhook would work, but the plane wouldn't have just just gone off into the
In
sunset.
a lot of ways, it stresses
Yeah.
credibility. I mean, how do you blow up every hospital in Gotham, and as will happen.
Sure, it's a comic book movie, so I'm being nitpicky here.
No, but it's worthwhile to mention.
Who's that actor? The Asian guy. He's good. I mean, he really has gravitas of a certain type.
Oh, I believe his name is Chin Han. He actually, interestingly, he also appeared in Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, doing all the superhero sequels.
Well, he brings it. He brings it to a low key part. Really.
It's a really fun performance.
This scene right here with Rachel interrogating the Chinese guy kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about Maggie Gyllenhaal's performance. This scene would have been portrayed differently if Katie Holmes returned.
Yeah,
In
you're
what
right.
way?
That's a good point.
To me it's like two different Rachels to me.
Well, well, let's compare this to that scene any scene between Cillian Murphy and Katie Holmes in the first one, where she's from Katie Holmes, there's a real like outrage that this guy is getting away with all this horrible crap,
Right.
and Maggie Gyllenhaal, she's kind of like having fun in this scene,
Yeah,
there's not, I don't sense that same outrage at corruption.
You're right. I agree with that.
It's as if she didn't really do her homework as well as she should have.
And also, to be honest, I think Nolan should have told her we got to play this differently,
Right,
for the sake of consistency.
Yeah, he might not have. He might have thought she was ancillary to the plot, that she was just not really a part of the progression somehow, and didn't care.
This, I think, is another example of and by the way, I think that was the end of the first act there, the arrest of all those guys. That's almost like its own story. But this is, I just love this here. Again, it's a little bit of a joke, all these criminals, and they get them all. And the tragedy is how the joke is about to turn really bad.
Oh, I know.
Because, they have no idea the whirlwind they've reaped, man.
Yeah, this movie is very well balanced, though. It is a roller coaster, and at the end, you get some pretty mean payoffs.
You do.
Really emotionally powerful scenes coming up.
Yeah. It's for all the grimness, it's a very cathartic movie, really. Also, we got a moment coming up where the body of one of the wannabe Batmans slams against the window. And it's a real old-fashioned jump scare, and it kind of, I know Nolan, growing up, was an Indiana Jones fan. I kind of sensed the touch of Raiders of the Lost Ark, and a little bit of that old school showmanship in here. That's such kind of a ghoulish thing, the dead body on the rope, bam, and I like that. I like that, he's got that sense of ghoulish fun.
It's a nod to whoever came before.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Oldman, I like Gary Oldman here. He's not as intense. He ratcheted it way down. He plays quite a likable man in some ways.
Do you think you mean less intense than he is in other movies, or
yes,
less intense
in other movies?
Okay, yeah. No, this is. I love that. Gary. This kind of performance is the kind of performance that makes you forget Gary Oldman's British.
True.
He's such the kind of prototypical like dad cop, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that is acting. I mean, you can clean it up. Okay, this is the scene that Heath Ledger ad-libbed and shot himself.
Did he ad-lib that scene?
Yeah, it was all him. It was
I didn't
he
know
wanted
he
to play with it.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah.
I really love the bit where he kind of like dangles the bat cowl. Yeah. And it's almost it's weird. It's almost like he's waving a used condom around or something. Like it's got like a real like weird kind of like vibe.
And he gets his mouth right up against that lens.
Yeah.
Oh no. We haven't talked about his tongue work either, which is just grotesque. The way he laps at his lips with that tongue all the time.
Yeah. Nice cut there, by the way.
Yeah. It's almost saves your emotions, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, now I can understand. This is a building. This is like normal life.
By the way, the shot from behind that we just saw of Eckhart and Gyllenhaal entering the party, and Nolan's talking about this. Lots of shots of people entering rooms where you only see their back in his movies. And he's talking about the idea it's all about perspective, like kind of showing you like whose perspective like matters in this scene, or words to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. And you actually saw that with the criminals walking into the meeting where that Ledger interrupts. It's the same thing. And here comes Bruce Wayne, party boy. Love that look on Eckhart's face, like just kind of like, you know, like.
Well, you know, in terms of his visual storytelling, Nolan has a very talented intuition about it.
Yeah.
And that's also what informs his style.
Yeah, he's very, you know, you know, I mean, there's some filmmakers, you know, where you can tell really all that matters to them is like story and performance, and it's kind of like the old Hollywood thinking of like, well, you just want to stay out of the way and let the audience be absorbed in the story, not think about the director. And I don't think you think about him in a distracting way, but Nolan definitely is a presence, you know, and he has a visual way of doing things. And we like coming up in this moment, like we get this shot of Bruce Wayne with the glass of champagne, and he just kind of like jerks the glass so the champagne flies out. There it is. Yeah, like, you know, it's a cool visual way of showing, you know, just how discontented he is. And by the way, this was all shot in front of a green screen. It's really kind of striking that
that whole party is a green screen. Yeah.
The whole thing, like in this.
Yes, it is. I saw a take without the effect in place.
That's fascinating. It's interesting how naive he is in this moment. He really believes that he can be done being Batman, and he's I think he wants to believe it more than he actually believes it.
I think he's recoiling from the Joker's punch, because I think as a villain, the Joker didn't want to just kill Batman. He wanted to kill the mythos around Batman.
Sure.
And
sure.
I think that caught him off guard, and that's why he was getting into that.
Yeah. Well, and by killing the mythos of Batman, I assume you're referring to, like, you know, him killing the wannabe Batman and kind of almost
making a mockery of it, and feeding into the general public's suspicion of masked vigilantes in general. You know, like turning Batman into the bad guy and not the good guy that he was.
Well, there's that line, you know, this is how crazy Batman's made Gotham. Mm-hmm. That's a very...
So she's just about to get blown up. Why the envelope? And it's a blank piece of paper, right?
I assume it's just
a thing?
The Joker's way of, you know, taunting her, you know, because he finds... He just enjoys, you know, terrorizing people. It's not enough for him to kill them. Just like when his you know, whole thing about guns are too quick, you know. He uses a knife because he wants to save her.
Well, they
destroying
didn't,
people.
they didn't really get into this so much, but you imagine that the Joker kind of got into this whole Fight Club cult thing where he had minions all over the place.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. I mean, well,
Working for the government all over the place, being able to hack these offices.
well, that's another thing of like, you know, like really when you think about it, the Joker would have had to plan everything that happens in this movie well in advance, and you know, spend weeks if not months placing all the bombs, you know, getting all the people in place.
That means he's an absolute flat-out genius. I mean, really the smartest person ever.
Yeah.
And he plays it off as if he didn't do any of it.
Yeah. Well, in a way, you know, the Joker as a character is a very brilliant actor. Like, he says, do I look with like a guy with a plan, and like kind of, he sort of sells the idea that he's just an agent of chaos, a mad dog. But when you think about it, well, he does have a plan. He's trying to. His plan is to, as Batman says, show the world that everyone's as ugly as him. And that's a very clear goal. He's actually not as chaotic as he seems sometimes.
But I think you also make the case that Nolan doesn't have to explain that character because he's just plain evil.
No.
And perhaps the point is that evil is random, or the horror of the universe is so great that this is just a symbol of the fact that you can't figure things out.
I think you're probably right, and I think it would trivialize him to to make him sympathetic in any way.
Yeah.
And it would be dishonest because I think in this character is a great example of it. Yes, everybody's human, but true evil does exist in the universe. I mean, otherwise, how do you explain someone like Hitler?
This is a great scene,
yeah.
By the way. And the intercutting, like this movie, is just full of that rhythm of Nolan going back and forth between all these different things.
Yeah, well, like I love that he puts this little bit in here with the two people, caught having sex. Like, it's just a fun little punctuation mark in the whole thing, and just something really.
You remind me of my father.
Yeah, and of course I hated my father.
Yeah.
It's like, of course, it wasn't going anywhere good. And here we get one of a couple scenes in the movie where the camera just starts spinning, and this is a real freaky moment.
I love it how he tries to fix himself.
Yeah, I know. Like
he looks a lot better when he put it.
He's running with his hair there. He's almost like mocking her, like making fun of the idea that like he would.
He's mocking that whole world.
Yeah, he's mocking that whole like idea of like
Yeah.
Like kind of sort of beautifying yourself for to impress the beautiful woman.
And he's weirdly playful a lot.
Yeah. What it must have felt like to do this scene with him, I think that must have been just stomach churning.
And he's, as you may know, he said that this is the most fun he ever had.
yeah. That's really kind of crazy if you think about it.
Yeah.
Like,
but
he said that. Yeah. But I'm as you said, freedom. There weren't a lot of limits to what he could do.
No. That tongue.
I need to watch the bonus material for this movie because I have it, but I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, I only have the single disc DVD, so I've never seen the bonus.
So is there a commentary with Nolan? Because that would be fascinating.
He's not real into commentaries, but he did commentaries, I believe, for Following, Memento, and Insomnia. I don't know if he did any others, but his Insomnia commentary is really crazy because the commentaries, That's
a great movie, though.
Yeah, it's a brilliant movie. He did the commentary in the order that he shot the scenes, so when you watch the commentary, the movie actually jumps around in time.
Very poor choice of words.
He knows just how to work Batman.
I think that one scene right there really establishes how much of an anarchist the Joker is.
Yeah.
Like he didn't have to think about it. He just did it, you know.
Yeah. It's
Like it establishes that he doesn't really have to fully think about things. He just goes with his gut, you know.
You're absolutely right.
Like a total anarchist.
Yeah. Because that was a moment he could not have planned. Because he didn't even plan for Batman to be there.
He probably had an idea, and then he heard Batman say something, and then like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, just on a different track all of a sudden.
And he knows he figures out right from that moment that Batman loves Rachel.
Yeah, because in his scene with Harvey Dent, he was like, oh, I'm not into scheming, you know, I'm just gonna do things.
You see, you were a schemer.
You were a schemer. You had plans.
See, I'm like a dog chasing a car. I don't know what I'd ever do if I caught.
And then there was that scene where he actually was like a dog. Out of the car window. And
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I wonder if they did that on purpose. That's great. You're right.
I can't, in all these years, I never made that connection. You're
But
so
it
right.
works.
That's
Yeah.
wow. That's kind
He's
of
exactly
that
like
makes
who
me
he
think.
is.
That is fascinating. Alfred pretty much sums it up here. You know, some men want to watch the world burn. The first time I saw the movie, I thought it was a little too neat for him to just have the answer right here. But in retrospect, I've become, you know, more forgiving, and I've come to feel that, you know, well, I mean, kind of part of the Nolan thing is he wants his characters to talk about ideas, not just
Deeper
imply
ways.
ideas, but, you know, like really like have these kinds of philosophical discussions, and I've come to see that as a strength, actually, because I think it deepens the story really.
Just like in Dunkirk, the main general, he was basically the Michael Caine character.
That's true. That's true.
Talking about home.
Yeah.
I can see it, you know, that kind of character. I mean, that was the thrust of the film, why it was so important, because, you know, it's home.
Yeah.
Or the philosophical level, anyways.
Oh, I think you're right, yeah. Kenneth Branagh actually was the one who pushed Nolan to, like, give him a line when the boats arrive at the end, and, you know, gave him just the one word home, and it, you know, that was a really good choice. It was really important. I actually just watched Dunkirk again last night.
Oh, you have it on DVD or
I
something?
sure do, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I haven't seen
Been
it.
binging that one.
They say it is diminished on the small screen, as I guess it would be, but what do you think about that?
You know, I mean, to be honest, I think everything is diminished on the small screen.
Sure, yeah,
you know,
that's true.
you know,
But
I
not
mean,
fatally.
No, because I mean, honestly, some of my best movie experiences have been at home, because I enjoy, you know, watching, you know, movies when I'm comfortable and in the house, and you know, I mean, just to, like, I mean, I heard an interview with J.K. Simmons the other day where he was saying, like, he doesn't really watch movies more than once or twice, and I'm totally the opposite. I mean, I have several movies that I watch at least once a year, or even multiple times a year. You know, the Nolan films I really like, I watch those each about like twice a year.
So Touchstone movies, give us one.
Touchstone for me?
Yeah, for you. Yeah, what is one?
Oh, I mean, you know, well, I mean, Lost in Translation is my favorite film of all time, so that would be one. Also, Whit Stillman's Metropolitan, which is my I think the funniest movie ever made.
Wow. I'm gonna have to write down some of these.
Bertolucci's The Dreamers is a genius movie. I think very hilarious, very dramatic, very romantic, very sexy. Of the Fountain. I mean, you know, Aronofsky. You know, I think
this is a great scene.
Yes,
Where this
yeah.
guy tries to blackmail him. Oh my God, it's just beautiful. Morgan Freeman earns his money here because he is so confident and right on in the way he reacts.
It's it's a rule of any Dark Knight movie. You have to have a scene where like Morgan Freeman like shows somebody who's boss.
Oh,
like,
dude.
You know, like the whole like and preferably you have to have a scene where like Morgan Freeman like turns something somebody said against that, like the whole thing. I'm sure a businessman of your stature will understand.
Yeah, look at that. Look at the half open eyes there. And you mean? Wait a minute now. What is it you're saying about him?
And Reese is like yeah, I was not prepared for this.
I didn't know I'd get blowback
And
that.
And Lucius Fox is so confident that he doesn't even bother to tell Bruce Wayne about this whole thing because he's like, yeah, I got this. Like it's like he's not going to be a problem. Of course he is a problem again later, but that's really the Joker's fault.
Isn't it nice for a producer to be able to plug in a guy like Morgan? Look at the look on his face there, the delight that he had.
Well, Nolan is a big fan of the Richard Donner Superman. He really liked the idea that you had these heavyweight actors like Gene Hackman and Marlon Brando, and he wanted to make a movie like that.
You can't argue against that, man.
Yeah.
You say Morgan Freeman's a cliche, only no one else brings it like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, he kind of plays Morgan Freeman, but honestly, I think Morgan Freeman is a great character to play.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. I still don't quite understand this whole thing with the bullet. I find it to be a little confusing, to be honest.
Right. That's where I was paying attention to it, like trying to see if I could figure it out, but I don't know. Well, like you were saying earlier, this is a 5-act film that's very difficult, I think, to string together. So
yeah.
I think there's there's going to be a few rough edges.
Yeah,
in that
for sure.
Screenplay.
Well, and the truth is, I really think this movie could be cut. You could take some of the stuff out, and I think it would have a stronger impact if you did.
Right.
Well, it's a tough thing because like
you'd lose the explosions if you did that, though.
I guess I sort of like. I like really long movies because I like to kind of like get lost in a movie for a long period of time. So I'm okay with a little bit of
extra
fat.
blubber, yeah.
But then again, you look at a movie like Dunkirk, and how trim that movie is.
Yeah, people said it was too long. Not for me.
Not for me either. Yeah,
that was a very trim movie.
And if I'm being honest, I actually think Dunkirk is a better movie than this one. So
yeah, sure. But this is pop culture right here. I mean, this is just. Well, I mean, it's Saturday morning cartoons, really. It's been done in any number of ways.
Sure.
He just did it better.
I mean, they are a different beast altogether, too. I mean, it's difficult to compare Batman.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. Yeah. I mean, it's like there's a difference between, dramatizing the lives of real people and dramatizing the lives of a billionaire ninja who drives a tank and wields a grappling hook.
And the tank that can hide a motorcycle.
And then eventually, of course, he gets his own bat helicopter, and there you go. I always wonder. So he's in the apartment of someone named Melvin White. I always wonder who Melvin White is.
I guess those. Yeah, I don't quite understand the significance. It makes you wonder if something might have been cut, some explanation for.
I wonder, yeah.
Why this is happening.
Well, Nolan doesn't do reshoots ever. His whole attitude is like, well, if you have a problem, you just push in the editing room, you fix it.
Really?
Yeah. So, I mean, I suppose it's conceivable that there was some issue, and he kind of tried to like paper over it as opposed to like shooting another scene to clarify.
Mm-hmm.
I really believe Commissioner Gordon was dead first time I saw this, but in retrospect, I was probably a sucker for thinking that, but it's a really potent movie. You know, it's the stakes are feel very real, and you believe that that people can die in this world.
Yeah, and in this kind of movie, you should suspend some disbelief. A little bit.
Absolutely.
Now, is that guy a bad guy in some way? I was not.
Oh, so and this, I mean, I think it's edited a little bit confusingly. But he was one of the guys who tried to shoot the mayor. Oh. And that's why he's in here, handcuffed. But it breezes by really fast.
Okay.
By the way, Commissioner Gordon's wife, played by a different actress than in Batman Begins, but.
Really?
But she didn't have any dialogue in Begins, so it's really kind of a moot point.
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't notice that.
I'm not a real big fan of the way the movie uses this young kid playing Commissioner Gordon's son. I think it's kind of like we get to a scene later where there's a couple like young boys pointing their fingers pretending to shoot, and I hate the way action movies kind of
want to lecture you against
well,
it?
Yeah, and want to bring these kind of young, fresh-faced little boys and kind of make us all go, "Aw," It's I always feel like I'm being worked when they do that. Like I'm being made to go like, "Look how cute they are," and I don't know. I think why couldn't I don't know. I mean, you had to have Gordon have a kid, but it feels.
Well, casting directors are going to pick the cutest kid.
Well, yeah. On a happier note, I think this is one of the most badass things I've ever seen. This fight right here, the kind of electronic music and the disco lighting, kind of timed with the Batman punches, that is really cool. Notice how we all go quiet on the big Rachel moment. There's nothing interesting to talk about. Okay, here we go. That's better.
I actually thought he did pretty good as Harvey Dent.
Yeah. He's a great actor. He's just, but most of the time he doesn't push himself. He does he takes on a challenging role I don't know every 10 years or something, every 3 years.
Yeah, you don't see him all that much.
You don't, yeah. He's about to do some real good shouting too.
He's almost like what Matthew Modine has become. I worry about him on that level because Aaron Eckhart seems like he should be doing more than he does.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Aaron Eckhart is absolutely extraordinary, and he should be working with all the big directors. He should, be working with, Spielberg and Scorsese and David O. Russell. He should be working with. He should work with Nolan again. I mean, he could have been one of the astronauts in Interstellar or something.
You think it's a choice on his part?
I mean, you look at the facts. Like Aaron Eckhart. I mean, he's proven to have incredible range. Like doing this and doing Thank You for Smoking, very different things. Yeah, he can carry a movie. He is a star, and I find it hard to believe that he wouldn't get very heavyweight offers, so I think he must, I mean, not to sound mean, but I think he must be kind of lazy, be content.
Well, contented, let's say.
Yeah, contented. Well, because, why does he do movies like I, Frankenstein and Battle of Los Angeles? And he did both of those after this. After you did this, why would you do that? It's the point of doing this is so you don't have to do the shit movies. After this, you're supposed to you're supposed to do something cool. You're supposed to do another Nolan movie. You're supposed to do a musical biopic where you like, you know, you pretend to be like high on crack and like, you know, get to overact and stuff. Like, you know,
I mean, he could be one of those actors where he just has other priorities in his life. And it's like a secondary thing.
That's a fair point. I mean, Daniel Day-Lewis was like that until he retired.
Maybe he runs a real estate empire. Who knows? Something.
Well, he's got those like all-American good looks. He'd be a comforting realtor. By the way, I don't understand how Batman found him here. That never made sense to me. Batman just randomly shows up. How did he know he was there in this one random alley?
It's cinematic magic.
Yeah.
Well,
it was one of those things you don't notice until like repeat viewings.
When you soar over a city, though, I mean, you see so many.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And you can narrow it down.
Yeah.
You know the guy.
He's got some kind of surveillance.
Wait. He's working on the cell phone surveillance thing.
Well,
that's true. You're right. That's it. Okay.
Cell phone.
I retract my point. But I think that is.
Oh, you say so that technology is already in place for him to some extent.
He mentioned it in the scene before.
All right. Okay.
Government telecommunications.
There you have it. Yeah. Thank you. By the way, is the mob boss Eric Roberts?
Oh yeah.
Why hasn't he done more? That guy is handsome as hell.
I don't know.
And a good enough actor, right?
He's really compelling in this too. And we'll get to this later, but I think there's more going on with the Eric Roberts character. Well, actually, we can get to it now. There's more going on with that character that meets the eye because he tells Gordon where the Joker is. I think Eric Roberts kind of feels that he's in over his head, and he kind of regrets, you know, unleashing the Joker. I think he has a little bit of guilt.
Okay.
Here's another one of the scenes with the lack of chemistry.
Oh, the scene is so dead. Yeah, I mean, look how beautiful the cinematography and the lights that sit outside are, and the acting dead, not into each other at all. He has more chemistry with that rubber suit up there, you know. You can see love in his eyes there.
They modified the suit for this one, right? It's lighter.
Yeah,
because it looks lighter.
Yeah. If you also notice, it's a little more detailed. Like it's more, it's got more separated plates.
Yeah, it's even more of a ninja suit.
Yeah.
Michael Caine, in any scene he's in, man, is just really worth watching. I watched a movie where they imitated him, and God,
was it The Trip?
Yes.
Yeah, have you seen The Trip, Patrick? No. That movie is genius.
I love it. They're sitting there over dinner, and she was a 14-year-old girl. I can't do it. I'm embarrassing myself.
She was. I was a 14 or 15 or well. And then in the second Trip movie, Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon, did you see that one?
Yes, yeah, I love that. I love those movies.
And I love it because like in between the two Trip movies, The Dark Knight Rises came out. So in the second one, they're going, you know, I won't marry you. You know, I mean,
there is chemistry there. Right?
Yeah,
those two guys.
Yeah.
Oh God.
This I love this scene, and I love. You know, it's interesting. Like
he's so good in these scenes. Eckhart is.
Yeah. I love you know the way he says the night is darkest just before dawn. The dawn is coming. Like he's a true believer. He's a incredibly
very
strong
convincing.
figure.
Yeah. And they make him out to be. He is what he seems to be. A very good man.
And that's why he's so tragic when he takes a fall.
Yeah.
But of course, the great thing is with Eckhart, you see the rage and you see the anger and you see the capacity for
he's great.
So it's like you get both. You believe he's in him as a hero, but when he falls, it's like, well, you know, that was in there.
See, this is Bale. This was not. He's a great actor, but in this movie, he's sort of a stick a lot of the time. It feels like to me.
Well, imagine the direction. Christian, you know, you're doing a very good scene here.
Serious.
You've got something important to do in the scene.
Yeah.
You're going to stand there silently and do nothing while Aaron makes his big grandiose speech to the television camera. There's a good lad.
My fellow, thank you so much.
This scene tips a little bit too heavily the fact that she's going to die. Well, you give this to him when the time is right. I would have just have it be, can you give this to him when you see him?
It's sort of unnecessary somehow. Say, leave him a text.
You see, the writing of Rachel writing a letter as opposed to just telling him in person, that makes sense to Rachel, but having Maggie's performance in here just didn't sell it to me.
No, it doesn't sell it. Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
That's why it's a little awkward.
Well, and the thing, the reason the reason the Rachel Dawes character initially worked is that she's very rooted in Bruce Wayne's past. She grew up with him, and so again, when you recast, it's like, well, the whole point of the character is that she has this history with him. It's like recasting is antithetical.
Which strengthens my point. And they should have respected the continuity a lot better.
Yeah. Well, by the way, I should mention that Katie Holmes was offered this role again, and she turned it down. No one wanted her back. And
I think it was just like a scheduling conflict or something, because she.
Well, I would think she wanted to do like a movie with like Diane Keaton or something.
Yeah, something like that.
I get that. I totally get that. Who doesn't want to hang out with Diane Keaton?
That's such a shame, though. That
it is. Yeah.
So it wasn't some kind of politics. It was just scheduling.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. She unfairly, I believe, she got very weak reviews for her performance in Batman Begins. But I don't think Nolan cared. I think he wanted her back. And
yeah, I wouldn't say that it was like the best performance, but it was fine for what it was.
Yeah, yeah.
And they needed that continuity coming into this.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Oh man, these action sequences were done so well.
Yeah. Interesting thing. This movie started a little trend, which is having a fight scenes sort of about this point in the film where there's almost no music or no music altogether.
Yeah,
because
that's right.
Because the car chase in Inception comes at a similar point, and also the Dark Knight Rises, the first fight between Batman and Bane, no music.
I think the reason for that is to kind of allow the action to speak for itself and not try to elaborate on it so much artificially.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's because it's like you think about you don't need the music for this point.
But it only, of course, it only works if you do it well.
yeah. But also, and it's like you have to because it's like by the end, well, he's got to blow out your eardrums with like a big score. Mm-hmm. So it's like it makes sense. Well, you're still early in the movie, you want to save it.
And I like how this grows the Joker's character. Like, it shows that he's not just this fool who walks into rooms and this and that and prances here and there.
Yeah.
I mean, he can actually pick up a bazooka and blow you up.
Yeah, that's a great point.
That
we don't know that.
Scary. That makes him even more scarier.
Yeah, absolutely.
When he jams that guy's head into the pen when he's doing his magic trick, how strong would you have to be, and how quick would your reflexes have to be before you could grab a guy and shove his head onto a pencil
without shattering the pencil?
I mean, he's a
I was like
pretty special dude.
Kind of imagining the Joker's backstory. Like maybe at one time he was even a special forces kind of person. Like he knows how to fight.
That wouldn't be out of line at all.
That's really one of the only things that could explain like how does he have so many? Like he's a really capable fighter. I mean it's like even though the conflict between him and Batman, at least in personal terms, is very much kind of a philosophical conflict. I mean, at the end, he really beats the crap out of him. He's formidable physically.
And he takes over a gang and evidently supervises them so well that they're able to rig every hospital in town with explosives to knock them down. I mean,
I really like how they went with the utilitarian sort of design with the Batmobile. You know, to break it away from the previous Batmobiles where it was just all design and, you know, ornamentation.
I'm a real big fan of this idea that Wayne Enterprises kind of makes these sort of militaristic gadgets, and that like the bat gadgets that Batman uses, they don't just randomly come from nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
right.
They're all there's a little bit of practicality, and I think that makes it, you know, I think that makes it more exciting because it's fun, and like, you know, you see like, you know, like oh, why the heck does he have to be dressed in black? You know, well, you know, he paints it that way. They don't explain this in the movie, but the idea is that the black paint like obscures his heat signature.
Right.
You know, and so I think it's fun, like kind of like coming up with these explanations that, you know, improbably make all this kind of make sense.
Yeah,
So here we get this transformation. They try to explain it with the graphics.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting.
By the way, I really like the voice of the Batmobile. You know, damage catastrophic.
And she says goodbye.
yeah. I mean, that's really funny. I like it. Yeah, there we go, damage. This is so cool. Here we go.
Goodbye.
I know, right? The music is so amazing.
Oh yeah, it just
gets you pumped up.
It does. I remember one time
Yes.
I was biking up a steep ramp, and I like just like to give myself some energy. I thought like da 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 da, and it's like it worked, man.
Yeah, that'd pump you up.
Yeah.
Hans Zimmer did a mountain climbing movie called K2. K2 is the name of one of the peaks, I think, in the Himalayas, but
Oh,
it would
I
be
think I've
quite.
heard of that.
Huh?
I think I've heard of that. Yeah.
The music is spectacularly beautiful. It's grand. It's enormous. But wouldn't it be great to have headphones and really be climbing and see that?
Yeah.
I just think it would be amazing.
Oh yeah, yeah. His you know, he is, if not one of the most imaginative composers working today. Like, I mean, the sounds he comes up with, you know.
Yeah.
And you all know, I imagine, that that chant from The Dark Knight Rises, you know, Deshe, Deshe, Basara, Basara, that was, he got fans to upload themselves doing that on the internet. And he used that in the score. I mean, it's just...
Really?
I mean, yeah, really, yeah. Like, I mean, just the crazy things that guy does, and just I like, you know, Nolan is very, like, you know, old fashioned. You know, he shoots on film. You know, he's very much a traditionalist, and Zimmer like just loves synthesizers and electronic sounds, and I think that combination is really interesting, and like when I was watching Dunkirk the other day, I was thinking about the idea that, like, even though the film is in the past, the music is so modern, and it you know, it kind of gets you in the mindset of, okay, this isn't some like fuddy-duddy World War II movie, you know.
Right.
This is something else.
Now, how did he rope and wrangle this semi-truck into flipping exactly?
So, I think he latches.
It's all about leverage. I know that.
He latches the rope onto the front of the truck. He kind of
weaves
it around the truck.
The light posts.
I guess I don't quite understand.
Pretty cool. Well,
it looks awesome.
It does look
looks
great,
awesome.
and it messes with the Joker for a while.
Look at the way he's like kind of like he's sort of like pratfalling there. You know?
Yeah, man.
It's like I don't think he's like really like tripping. I think he's just like kind of having fun, like bumbling all over the place. So, question for you guys: do you think he really believes it when he says, "I want you to do it"? And if
what scene?
What does he mean by? What do you guys? How do you guys interpret that bit?
What scene is this again?
So he
right there.
He said when Batman's coming to him, he says, you know, like, come on, I want you to do it, like, kind of like, and, you know, hurt me, like, Do you guys take him at face value when he says
No.
that?
I don't. What do you think?
I would say yes, that the Joker, he's trained himself to take punishment, which is why
Sure.
it goes back to my idea that he was special forces before, because they do train you to survive interrogations.
Mm-hmm.
So like the interrogation scene in this, like they were beating him up, and he didn't flinch. He didn't really care.
You're right.
So
yeah, he doesn't bat an eye.
He just walked out of a truck that flipped over.
Yes.
So he was expecting something to hit him. So I would say yes, he wanted Batman to hit him.
Interesting.
Yeah, but not to die. I think he
Not to
wanted
die.
another challenge, another big adventure.
What I'm saying is that he was confident enough that even if Batman was
Yes,
to hit him,
I
he
agree
would
with
survive.
Absolutely.
Sure. I like that. I think that makes sense. I have two other theories as well. I'm sure it doesn't feel good being the Joker. He could be suicidal. Or B, if Batman hit him and killed him, it would destroy the illusion that Batman was this pure hero who
Exactly.
won't cross
There you go.
that line, and then the Joker would have won.
That's why he wanted Batman to hit him, to further diminish the myth of the Batman.
Yes.
Well, and-
Which is like what you were talking about earlier with the scene where this is how crazy Batman's been.
And by the end of the movie, it's pretty clear he thinks he's won. you know?
Yeah. Yeah, the last time we see him, he's cackling in victory.
Oh man, this interrogation scene is just amazing too.
Yeah. We're gonna have a lot to say about that. Something really chilling about the sight of, in just a sec here, the Joker applauding.
I know, right? And like he thinks that they just got a victory. But
Yeah.
they haven't seen anything yet.
Yeah. I mean, so much horrible crap has happened, and the worst it's not even
nearly yet.
It's like he's exactly like he says he is. He's ahead of the curve.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is why he was like clapping ironically at them.
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh, you guys are idiots. You didn't really win anything."
And with this phone call in just a sec, that's the moment, the beginning of everything going to hell.
And the cute little boy. So
Yes.
Yeah.
Yet again. Now, we can't watch this scene without talking about the lighting. I love this, how we start out with just faces swimming in the dark. You know, like just it's very eerie. You know, it's almost like the Joker's head looks almost like it's disembodied there. It's a really chilling image. And then when we get the blinding light, you know, which by the way, Wally Pfister, the cinematographer, didn't like the bright light. You know, that was a Nolan idea, and I think Wally Pfister's a brilliant cinematographer. You know, he won a well-deserved Oscar for Inception, but I hate to say it, but Pfister was wrong. Well, actually, I don't hate to say it. Pfister was wrong. Nolan was right. This really bright lighting we get here in just a second. So
you see the bright lighting on Nolan's part. It brings out the honesty of the scene and what's going on.
Yeah, you get to really see every twitch of the face, every gesture.
Right.
Heath Ledger was 28 when he did that.
God, that's just a year older than me.
Brilliant.
That's
for
freaking
an
mad.
actor his age. That's
Where did he get that kind of, I don't know, that psychotic, and it was under his control apparently, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Gary Oldman's way older than him, and he'll probably never get to do anything quite that extraordinary. And this is just as you say, Patrick. You know, he seems trained to withstand interrogation because he's really not that phased by having his head slammed into a desk. I mean, if that happened to me, I would, pass out pretty much instantly.
Like, you imagine he's battle-tested already, and then at some point in his life he just gone like, totally crazy, and he wants to burn the city down.
Yeah, yeah. Look at this shirt. That's just... That is...
It's all custom-made.
Yeah. Custom-made, no labels.
Yep. I mean, he has enough of a big Fight Club-style henchman cohort that he was able to wipe his record off every database.
That's fascinating. Like in that Script Magazine article I mentioned, Jonathan Nolan talked about, the Joker is not necessarily a supernatural character, but there is almost a sense that he's a demon almost called into existence specifically to test Batman. Mm-hmm. And I like that, as you bring up the, these nominated database, well, there's something otherworldly, and that's what makes him, so frightening, because he's kind of unknowable.
Yeah.
It's as if the Joker is obsessed with destroying Batman.
Yeah.
Like a really deep obsession with destroying Batman.
Kill you? I don't want to kill you. What would I do without you?
But it serves the plot here. Look, I mean, most people would be chastened. They would be brought to their knees by what's happening here. And it only seems to energize the Joker that this is coming on. So he's not a human being.
No.
Not really.
Well, I mean...
one of those inflatable clowns you can punch and
yeah.
goes down and comes back up.
Well, there's that line he says, "You have nothing
to
threaten me with," because he knows that. He's a much better at playing this game than Batman, and he knows Batman won't kill him, so he knows in a sense he wins.
So if you look at him as the embodiment of evil, that works, because evil, you can't figure it out.
Yeah.
He put on his own makeup, by the way.
I read that.
As the character would, right? So, as the character would.
Oh, yeah. Well,
So
I mean, he liked the idea of making it real sloppy. That was, I guess, his idea.
Because the Joker would just smear it on,
Yeah.
Also, I like that it's makeup and not that, he had some accident and his face just looks like that. I like the idea that he uses that makeup to create an impression. Although, of course, the scars are real.
Yeah, and we never, ever, he tells the story all kinds of times. It's always different.
Never figure it out.
He's an amazing villain.
Yeah.
Joker. You would imagine at some point in his life he was like, his IQ test scores are just off the record.
Yeah, he's clearly intelligent.
Very brilliant.
Smarter than Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
This, I think this scene is just heartbreaking. I think this is this really beautifully done. The cutting between Harvey and Rachel and Batman racing to get there in time. Doomed not to make it.
Yeah. So we had to wait until halfway through the film for Maggie Gyllenhaal to take the Rachel character seriously.
Yeah. Well, she plays it well in the moment.
Yeah.
Oh, and another detail I love. The glass broke when the Joker got smashed into the wall by Batman.
Yeah.
And that's how he gets a weapon to use against this guy. I never thought about the first several times I saw this, but and then right behind his head,
Supernatural, almost in the same way, makes me think of Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, sure.
Just how you can't do that. Make the guy in the next cell swallow his tongue and die.
course, you identify that the other person has some kind of like schizophrenic issue or
Yeah.
something like that. So
Sure.
you play
Yeah,
with it.
so all of the weaknesses that supposedly open the door to evil are opened by these guys.
Yeah.
And the Joker knows how to play that too.
Yeah.
Sure does.
Yeah. The whole thing, by the way, with the bomb in the guy's stomach, that is just one of the grossest things I've ever seen. I mean, I know it was necessarily the plot, but it's so gross that I almost wish it wasn't in the movie. But you have to admire a filmmaker who has the balls to do that. 250 52nd Street. Yet another scene where, I think you're really juggling three narratives here. You know, what's going on back at the station with the chase to get there in time, with Harvey and Rachel, you know, waiting for their doom. It's a lot to handle, and in a second they end this bit here with the cop going for the Joker, and cutting off there is a really terrifying and intense thing, and I think it's very effective.
This is a very epic film.
It
From
is.
start to finish. I
It
mean,
is.
and because of that, I can't help but just be a little forgiving of some of the rough edges.
I feel very forgiving
You
of the
know?
rough edges too, because I mean, you know, this is a movie that works on you.
It
It
works
gets
for me.
inside your skin, and it's
Sure does.
it exhausts you and I mean that as a compliment. You know, like whenever I get to the end of it, I feel kind of overwhelmed, and I think that's a testament to to, again, as you say, the epic quality.
And even as we're watching it without sound, I mean, I'm getting affected by it.
Yeah. Well, same here. Yeah.
Well, here, this is just grotesque here. What happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God. I mean, yeah. Nolan, I know, is very inspired by silent films, and I think I know he's a fan of D.W. Griffith's Intolerance, and that's a movie that at the climax, like that climax of that movie is a real precursor to these kind of Nolan action sequences, because you're juggling, I don't know, like 3, maybe even more different plot lines, and which I mean to tie back into, you know, what you're talking about, even with the silence, it plays.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up soon in the movie, there'll be scenes that show something that I read, and it sure seems true, which is that Heath Ledger watched Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton for some of his physical
That's
behavior.
fascinating. Fascinating.
It really will be apparent in one scene that's coming up where he holds the device that causes the explosion.
Oh, right. That was,
Right.
that was a really funny. Yeah.
You know, I never made the connection to Chaplin or Keaton, but I'm so glad you bring that up, Jim, because it's like,
No, I could see that.
because now that you mentioned that, like, I feel like, of course, because like, you know, I was just rewatching City Lights the other day, and Chaplin's gestures and body language are so specific.
Yeah,
and
it's
so
really,
well chosen.
really wonderable.
And Heath Ledger is exactly the same way. I mean, look at the way he like shakes the keys and says "hello there." You know, I mean, like that's a very specific way of playing.
He's an artist. I mean, what would he have done? Why did he have to die? That man was so good.
I know.
At 28.
And there's the dog shot.
Yeah,
like you mentioned, Patrick. Interesting. I never noticed the depth of field there is very, very shallow. So the city's all kind of just all this murky color and darkness, and that's a pretty cool choice. I love this shot too, like just his head bent in shame, and you know, he failed. He failed in every possible way.
So at this point, the Joker is just kicking his ass.
Yeah. You have to think in these moments of, rubble and firemen dousing the flames, you have to think about 9/11, and this movie engages very directly with the idea of terrorism, specifically by choosing to call the Joker a terrorist as opposed to a villain or a gangster or something.
And if you, I don't know, in my perspective, when I analyze this movie, the way the story was written, if you think of it as one person versus another person, the Joker wins in this.
He does win.
Batman
I
loses.
agree. I totally. You have
Batman
to
lost.
listen.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Because, let's say I'm... hey, Jim, do you want a cushion to sit on?
That'd be good.
Thanks. You think about, yeah, the good name of Harvey Dent is preserved, but the cost is that Batman's good name is destroyed, and so...
Right. I mean, the Joker's whole point of this whole thing was to destroy Batman, and he did.
Yeah.
He succeeded.
I think they would have just had to rewrite it if it weren't a trilogy. You know what I mean? If they let it end there, I mean the movie ends, but he still has another movie to make good.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why they made The Dark Knight Rises, right?
Yeah.
When The Dark Knight Rises begins with a Batman from a losing position.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely.
And the way this movie ends, I mean, it just keeps the whole Joker mythos going because they didn't show any conclusion as to what happened to the Joker.
Yeah.
True.
It just dangles there forever.
And I really love that. Because it would destroy the mystique of the character to have it be like, oh, he goes to prison, or oh, he gets the death penalty. That's too banal,
And then turn into a courtroom drama.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
It's inconclusive. The Joker will be back to terrorize again later.
Yeah.
I remember Nolan mentioning this before The Dark Knight Rises came out, and if you watch the film, it's true. No one mentions the Joker in that film.
The Dark Knight Rises?
In The Dark Knight Rises.
That's true.
No one mentions the Joker, and that's...
Well, it was like, what, a 10-year...
8 years later.
8 years later, that's quite a while.
8 years later, no one mentions him, and I think that's a testament to the idea. It's like, well, the Joker can't ever really be defeated because there are always Jokers. There are always people who want to believe the worst of humanity, and that's why Batman is such a important character, because he believes the best of humanity, and that was really his conflict with Ra's al Ghul as well. That's really the core conflict of the entire trilogy between optimism and cynicism, and I like the idea that I think the trilogy is optimistic ultimately, and I appreciate that, but at the same time I appreciate the idea that it's not conclusive either. At the end, it all ends with him passing the torch to another Batman who's going to have to deal with all this same shit. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So I was going to say, on the business level, they want to keep making these movies.
Yeah. Love this, hear how he says, "Why should I hide what I am?" And he turns toward Gordon, but you actually see his face then.
It,
and they tease you a bit, building up the suspense of what's he going to look like.
I don't think it's just makeup. Do you? Isn't that computer graphics that
Yep.
That
It's
can't happen.
It's all computer graphics.
Yeah, you couldn't do that.
Because it's like,
look at
there we go.
Oh, here we go.
Because you can't add on to his face, you have to subtract.
Yes, exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Something interesting Nolan said. He said, I chose not to make his burns look realistic because realistic burns would be too disturbing. Well, that's interesting because he's such a hardcore director and he's such a realist, and yet he is an entertainer, and there are some lines even he doesn't want to cross. I think that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, he knows what he's doing. I'll definitely defer to him on that one.
Yeah. Oh, me too. You know, I mean, this scene is so grim, but it's so much fun. I think this is just one of the most purely entertaining scenes. Like, you know,
Yeah.
I'm only burning my hat. Like,
Yeah.
What a great joke.
Now this is where he's already taken over this guy's gang,
Yeah.
but
yeah.
he doesn't know it yet. Is that the bottom line here?
I don't know. I mean, you bring up an interesting point. Look, the power structure is never entirely
Yeah,
clear.
I don't know about that.
I mean, like, has the Joker taken over the gang already?
Or are they partners?
Yeah, or does the gang simply see, you know, well, you know, if I'm going to pick a guy not to cross, it's going to be the Joker, you know?
Good choice, by the way.
Yeah. And the cigar you thought was just a crazy prop ends up having a purpose. Look at the horror on this guy's face. Like,
Yeah.
like the money means so much to him, and it's like he's horrified on an almost spiritual level.
Yep.
And the Joker doesn't give a fuck, you know. That's what gives him so much power.
It brings out another dimension to the Joker's of what he's all about. You know, like he doesn't care about money. He's not doing this for money.
Yeah. This town deserves a better class of criminal.
And that scene does answer the question that he did not know, that the gang leader didn't know yet that his men work for the Joker.
Also, on another level, he knows that somewhere in that pile are marked bills, so he couldn't use it anyways.
That's true. I didn't think of that. That's interesting.
He that would have left a paper trail.
Which just underscores the idea that, you know, even though he's an agent of chaos, he's also a master strategist. You know?
Yeah, he knows how the world works.
He does.
Which is probably why he wants to burn it down.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you know, when you know how it works, I mean, that's you know, honestly, that's an understandable reaction.
Well, and the pressure that he puts on this environment makes room for greater evil because everybody breaks down, and that's really part of this movie. It seems to me.
Yeah.
He is an agent, but it taps into everyone. Most everyone gets implicated. Not Michael Caine.
No. Christopher Nolan said that, like, there's a kind of like Lady Macbeth vibe to the way Michael Caine in this movie is kind of pushing him to continue being Batman, and I think that's one of those cases when a director has a theory about their own movie that is kind of crackpot.
Yeah.
I think Alfred is both a very nurturing father figure and a man with a keen sense of justice, and he wants the best for Bruce, but he also, you know, believes Batman can do some good. And
Lady Macbeth needed power. The Michael Caine character does not. I mean, he's got everything he wants and needs.
Yeah.
Well, that's a pretty complex position that Michael Caine's character is in, right? I mean, you're kind of like family, a father figure, but at the same time, this is your employer.
Yeah.
How do you negotiate those two things?
Yeah.
Well, and then that's something that was really brilliantly done in The Dark Knight Rises when Michael Caine finally leaves because, like, you know, he is his employer. He can't stop Bruce from doing even something that's totally crazy, and so it's like he has, you know, leaving is the last weapon he has to try and, you know, to try and guide him, to try and teach him. And this is a pretty compelling sequence of events here. We didn't talk about this when it happened, but the moment when that woman shoots at Reese, I think is one of the most compelling and disturbing moments in the film. Like the idea that, like, even just like a random ordinary citizen in this movie is like, like, oh, they're gonna blow up a hospital. Yeah, I'll pick up a gun and like, just kill this guy in broad daylight.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
That's how you know. Like, I mean, that's
Yeah,
that's how you know the
spreading.
fear has really gotten to people.
Yeah, chaos.
Yeah, chaos.
I love chaos.
That's what he wanted, right? He wanted to bring chaos into Gotham.
That's what he wanted.
This scene that he plays as an apology is just amazing. It is so cruel.
Yeah.
Just evil personified.
That hi.
I'm
Like, kind of
almost
like-
embarrassed.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, I know things,
Yeah, I feel a
Didn't go
little
well.
bad about the way I've treated you or how it turned out.
I have a feeling that was all Heath Ledger's interpretation of the Joker.
Yeah,
I think
I
you're
have
right.
trouble believing that anyone can write that.
No,
Well, yeah. I mean, you look at. I mean, there was until now there was never, and there has never been since a Nolan character like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very
and Nolan
comes from a
was,
different place.
he was brilliant enough to let this man go. With
Yeah. It was kind of probably a thing of like, let the man do his thing.
He recognized it. He recognized the greatness of the vision. Really.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this was a brilliant sequence.
And this is really where the Joker lays out his whole philosophy, or at least what he claims is his philosophy. I mean, he's saying this partly to manipulate Harvey as well.
Yeah, exactly.
This is something I think very disturbing because this cop, this character Burr, whose wife is in the hospital, he's ready to shoot Reese in that moment. He's totally compromised. It's that kind of moment that sort of proves the Joker right. That deep down everyone's horrible. Although of course as we get to some moments later that
He was
blind face
proven
that.
wrong.
Yeah.
So it got to the film ended where Batman was never really ever capable of defeating the Joker.
Yeah.
I mean, he got him to that point where he was dangling upside down, but that was the best he could do.
Well, and you notice like how the Joker's dangling upside down, and the camera flips to make it look like he's right side up.
Yeah.
So it's like in the end, it still looks like he's in control. Really.
Right.
Here, where his neck is jutting forward, this is part, evidently, of his hyena-like behavior.
Oh, of course. That's fascinating. Yeah, it's a real the neck is really thrust out.
Yeah.
And he's getting that head right in Eckhart's face. By the way, and tell me if you guys can tell me if you disagree. I don't think the gun is loaded here. We don't see what happens.
That went through my mind too.
Because I don't think the Joker would let there be any possibility that Ted would kill him.
Because if anyone would, it's him then.
I mean, you can kind of see it. The barrels are empty.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. Yeah.
I think he was just doing that for dramatic effect to try to convince Harvey Dent.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And also, Harvey Dent doesn't even really take the coin seriously because that, whole exchange later, you're a lucky man. He's not. Who?
Yeah.
Your driver. If the coin doesn't let him do what he wants, he finds another way to get what he wants. Harvey Dent becomes an unprincipled maniac, not unlike
Like
the Joker.
Yeah.
Oh, he's got to get his hands clean.
So fastidious, like when he was doing his hair for Maggie Gyllenhaal.
I didn't even catch that before. That was funny.
Again, another scene where the lighting is very simple and unobtrusive. It's not only different from Batman Begins, it's a lot different from the murky Snyder look of later DC movies.
No, this kind of waddle that he does.
Oh, is that the Chaplin bit?
The Chaplin-esque thing.
Okay. Oh, you're right.
Oh, this was brilliantly done.
and then he'll stop and he'll play with the ignition device.
Like he's so unperturbed by.
Yeah, but he does this little
And he does it so lightly, so casually, like it's just another day at the office, you know. But then he's like, oh, crap.
We gotta get out of here.
And again, everything's so tightly wired. That's the bus with the doctors at the end.
He's got some good people behind him, you know, to be able to do this.
This was a Brax candy factory, by the way.
Whoa.
Factory. Yeah, and Nolan really blew it up.
Yeah, I heard about that.
So that
Isn't
wasn't
no, that's practical effects.
computer graphics.
No, he really did it. He really did it.
Damn.
He also had someone really jump off that building in Hong Kong, even though they later did that with CGI. But he wanted to rehearse it first to make sure they got it real. See, this is what I think all great directors have, like just a kind of like mania, you know, like just to push things to the extreme.
And when you prove yourself, like with Memento coming out of nowhere and doing a movie like that, you got the power.
You do. Well, I mean, if Memento, if that's your second film, like that's like, hey, newsflash.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing, you know,
right.
you know, let me do whatever crazy thing I want because I'm a genius. Although, of course, he's very modest in public. He would never put it in those terms.
No, I'm sure he wouldn't.
If he was James Cameron, he would, but, you know, he's not James Cameron. You don't see the Anthony Michael Hall character, Mike Engel, in The Dark Knight Rises. I think he may have retired from journalism after this rather traumatic ordeal.
Yeah, that guy's career. I wonder about a guy like that.
Yeah, you don't hear much about him. Now this to me, with the helicopters flying, and the soldiers and the dogs and the city just looking like a war zone. This is not when you really feel like order has totally broken down. Like the city is just.
It's like the cops are overwhelmed.
Yeah.
They're having trouble keeping order.
Totally. Yeah.
Because the Joker's winning. He's bringing chaos into Gotham.
Now does it drool out the side of his mouth or something? Oh,
I never noticed that.
Jeez.
You're right, that dripped right off his like weird like mottled chin.
The coin flip in No Country for Old Men.
Right.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Another terrifying villain with strange hair.
I'll say.
Love that shot, by the way, of Batman standing behind the monitors. And also, of course, here, one thing that I think is important to think about is, these were very much Bush-era movies. And this, here, of course, is, really touching on the Patriot Act and surveillance and the war on terror. And I would not call this a pro-Bush movie. I would not call any movie, hopefully, a pro-Bush movie. I would hope, but it's very. But really, the surveillance is ultimately validated because that's how he gets the Joker, which is kind of a scary thing when you think about it. He had to break every rule in the book to win.
It kind of justifies that argument.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it kind of does.
And that is a right-wing concept to do that.
But to take that a step further, the Joker won, so it didn't work.
That's true. That's true. That's true. Exactly. Exactly. That's a fair point. So, and I just love obsessing over nerdy things like this. This mayor, since I assume Gotham City has 4-year mayoral terms. The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises are 8 years apart. He's still mayor in The Dark Knight Rises. I have to assume he's at the beginning of his first term here, and at the end of his second term, next one. You know,
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're stretching it. But you know,
He's walking with his cane.
yeah, from the fall from the scaffolding.
The look on his face. Well, hi there.
I think the Joker's just a mad dog. Whoever let him off the leash. I think he would kill the Joker if he could. I don't think he really is content to let the Joker get off scot-free.
Oh, no.
I think he probably pulled the trigger in the hospital and found the gun wasn't loaded, and the Joker was like, "Ha ha ha! I'm out of here, sucker!" You know, and I think he's probably thinking, I'll get him later." Although in a way, it's probably easier for Harvey to kind of deal with sort of more familiar monsters, as they would say on Game of Thrones, like Maroni, or than to deal with a real psychopath like the Joker.
So he's going to do a little tuck and roll out of the car here and... Whoa!
And the moral is always wear your seatbelt,
Well,
because
yeah,
apparently
he
that's
takes
how
his
Harvey
off.
survived.
Yeah.
He took his off, though. So how did that work?
I think he put his on.
Oh, maybe
Right
that is.
before,
Okay,
yeah.
I'm gonna go with that.
Yeah, he put his seatbelt on.
Oh, he put it
before
on. Okay.
And this bit with the fairies.
This is a nice play. I
is.
totally bought this. I thought that was... This is leavening the horror in this movie in a way. It's making it a little better for the audience.
Yeah.
That there's some humanity, some honest-to-God humanity here.
And in a really incredible way. I've always been interested in the idea of, in superhero movies, how you, having really consequential moments with characters who are not a part of the main plot, who are just really kind of nameless people on the street, and again, Raimi's Spider-Man films did that, with having the train passengers in the second film play such an important role, and then this is a great example of that phenomenon. We never see these ferry passengers again. They're really only part of this one vignette, but in some ways, I think this is the most compelling part of the movie.
Right, and in this one sense, the Joker loses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This is how the Joker loses, not because of Batman.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But also, at the same time, strengthens the Joker's hand that society doesn't need Batman.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, absolutely. And that's a great thing about this trilogy of films. They don't hold with the idea that, we should just sit back and let a savior, do all the work. They really lock into the idea of people have to rise up and, fight for their own rights.
Right. You can't depend on some messianic figure to save your asses. You gotta save yourself.
Exactly. This is really the Joker's ultimate act, the thing he's been building up toward, the moment when it's the to sort of show people once and for all, humanity is inherently evil.
Yeah, how bad they are, not just him.
Yeah.
But they too.
He's done it before, but never quite on this scale.
And it's well choreographed in that way.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, it's nicely set up.
Well, I love that they keep cutting to different clocks. And it's kind of a cheesy device, but I think it was a really... I like the idea of the clock ticking. I like the idea of the countdown in the scene. And I like the idea that it's specific. You're very aware of how much time is passing.
Yeah.
Like a couple weeks ago, I was watching The Force Awakens, and there's a scene at the end where one of the rebels says, Admiral, their weapon will fire in 2 minutes, and then 10 minutes passes. And it's like, okay, I know movie time is different, but come on, But Nolan has always been very precise with time and has had fun with time, and he has a lot of fun in this sequence here.
I'm not surprised that you pointed that out because I don't hold J.J. Abrams that very high in regard.
No. I mean, honestly, I think he's only made one good film, the 2009 Star Trek.
You guys, if you haven't, you ought to watch Fred Zinnemann's High Noon.
Oh, I love High Noon. High Noon is that's an incredible movie.
The editor got the Academy Award for cutting to the clocks. Yeah.
Really? And
Have
that
you
movie,
seen that?
No.
Okay.
That movie is...
Watch it sometime.
Okay.
That movie's all... I mean, it's. I know it's not real time, but it's it's so contained. It takes place over such a specific, compact period
It's like
of time.
a perfect little gem, that movie.
Yeah, and it all builds to that one, amazing moment at the end.
And Cooper, good God.
Oh,
Talk about an
yeah.
anti-hero. He is scared to death during that movie. He is going to die.
And it's a great Western, and yet what makes that movie so powerful is it's really just about him talking with people and
And
having
asking
these ethical
them,
debates.
and hoping that someone will help him.
Yeah. And again, as Batman leaps off the roof here, the music just pumps up to a 10 and really gives the scene a lot of energy and emotion.
Those are nice shots. I think those are nice shots.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And see, wow, this movie really ends on a downer. I mean, it's like even Batman couldn't even save Dent, so
Yeah.
it's like everything is just kind of left up in the air.
Yeah. That's one thing I like about, anything that's the second installment in a series. It's like there's permission to not tie everything up too
Yes.
quickly,
Yeah, right.
because and that's why I think when people talk about Star Wars, they really want to talk about The Empire Strikes Back, because it's like, honestly, life kind of feels like The Empire Strikes Back. You get kicked in the ass, your hand gets cut off, but then, at the end you're looking out at the universe, it's like, okay, got to keep going, man.
Right.
That's something that's, I think, just a sort of an innate part of the human experience.
I want one of those clown masks. They're so great.
I'll bet they sell those.
I wonder. Some catalog, no doubt.
God, the Joker must just have a ton of those too. You think he's got like a whole gallery of them?
He bought them in bulk. You can do that.
And this is such a genius idea that Batman has to stop the clowns from being shot. It just adds an extra layer of drama to the scene. He's putting him at odds with the villains and with the cops as well.
Yikes.
call me bloodthirsty, but I don't think I ever tire of watching Christian Bale punch people. I mean, just these movies are so cool. Sorry, go ahead.
One of my gripes for Dark Knight Rises was I felt like the fight scenes in that one were lackluster. And it surprised me because the fight scenes in here are pretty good.
Fight scenes are good, yeah.
Why did they drop off in quality?
I like the fight scenes in Dark Knight Rises though. Like I love like that fist fight with Bane though. Like
I guess what I meant was the choreography.
Okay.
No, the ones with Bane were really good actually.
Yeah.
It's the one I'm thinking about specifically is the one with the Catwoman on the roof. The choreography was not very good.
Okay.
So I'm like,
Well, I guess if I have one complaint about the fight scenes in Rises, it would be during the climax that the cops all come out to fight, and then
that one too, yeah.
You just kind of like you just kind of cut to them at the end and they've won, and I wish we could have like seen them fighting with Bane's lackeys a bit more to give a sense of how the battle was progressing.
Right.
That was
I guess
that was a little bit of a missed opportunity.
It seems like they kind of rushed through it a little bit.
Yeah, you're right. I like this bit here. And yet he saves everybody's life.
Do you suppose they storyboard this movie? Because look at all the infinite shots. Look at that. Suddenly they're in some kind of crane or chopper, and it just it's really beautifully cut.
It is. Nolan is not, I know he doesn't typically do shot lists or storyboards, but I'm pretty sure I saw like some Batman Begins storyboards like for an action scene. So because maybe he makes an exception for the action, because I know he also only shoots with one camera, but he does make an exception for stunts. He does multiple.
Oh no, for action scenes, I think you have to do it whether you like it or not, because you're coordinating between so many different teams and you all have to be on the same page. There's the visual effects guys, there's the pyrotechnic guys, there's the guys, just with the cameras and all that. It's difficult.
The dog wrangler.
Yeah.
in the case of this scene.
Plus, I mean, you've got guys who are like keeping out for safety so that people don't get hurt. So that's kind of a necessary evil. But scenes like this, if you don't have to storyboard it. If Nolan doesn't want to storyboard it, then that should be fine.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point. This is a different.
See, here, this is really beautiful. I think.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Well, I love the idea that we have this prisoner here, like kind of like playing the role of the threatening guy, and the whole time he's preparing to make the ultimate sacrifice,
right? Exactly,
knowing that he's gonna
save
die.
People. Yeah,
and I like thinking like, what's going through that guy's head? Like, did he do something terrible that got him thrown in prison, and now he's thinking, I got one last chance to do something good, and it's very interestingly played.
It works.
Yeah.
It just works. This guy's a little over the top, but it works.
Yeah. Doesn't make any sense for us to die.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to do that again. Just take it down a little bit.
What I like about this fight scene with the Joker is that all of his moves are very deliberate. Like, you can tell he's trained. He's trained to fight.
That's true.
He's not just some gangly idiot,
The way he does that thing where he brings the metal beam down on Batman, like that's very precise.
You should have done 10 minutes ago.
And that's what...
I love that guy.
I love
Whoever that guy is.
And the guard who's in charge, kind of gives him the detonator, and this, authority figure is supposed to be, the law-abiding one who people should respect. Like, you realize, this guy who was in prison knew better than him. Because the guard, he wasn't prepared to die. I don't have too much sympathy for this guy because he was really ready to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this turnaround, I don't know. I guess I'm glad it happened for the plot.
Yeah,
I'm not sure that guy might have not been the man I would have chosen to do
it's really interesting, like how like horrified everybody looks here. Like I don't think any of them want to do it, but I think some of them were hoping he would do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a.
I thought everyone on the prison ship, I mean, if you look at those scenes, they all seemed like just stoned almost, or just dumbfounded by what's happened and what didn't happen. And it's very believable.
It is very believable. And from here, I don't think we cut back to the ferries again. It's almost like that vignette begins and it ends very cleanly. Oh, this is such a great moment. No.
He's gonna tell about the scars.
Another, every time in every one of these movies, at the end, Batman turns something the villain said against him. Like, when he says to Ra's al Ghul, "You never did learn to mind your surroundings," and then Dark Knight Rises, and then of course you get this. And then Dark Knight Rises. Tell me where the trigger is, then you have my permission to die. Like there's all I just love the bravado of these kinds of moments. We should really talk about that line. What are you trying to prove? Deep down, that everyone is as ugly as you. You're alone. Mm-hmm. That's kind of a fascinating thing. Like, does the Joker on some level just want to feel connected to people? And is this his absurd way of like not feeling isolated? It's like turn everyone into a freak like me. And, maybe life is a little bit more bearable. Oh, there's the tongue again, Jim.
Yeah, definitely the tongue.
On some level, I kind of wish that Christian Bale didn't have to do the Batman voice.
Yeah,
like,
how did you do that?
Can you just deliver it as your own? I mean, nobody connects you with Bruce Wayne anyways.
Well, it's like, I've sort of come to accept it as kind of like an endearing quirk. Like, I have to admit, I mean, it really turns into unintentional comedy when he's saying stuff like, "This city just showed you that it's filled with people ready to believe in good." It's like, yeah, as much as I love these movies, that wasn't supposed to be funny, was it? But it is.
Right, and then you go on YouTube and there's like Bat Dad videos.
What are those?
Like this father like playing Batman to his kids.
So what if he had just cut the cable in, and would he have died? I mean, is he really human enough to fall 20, 40 stories and die, or not?
Well, I mean, I suppose he would have, but then on the other hand, I mean, I suppose he also knew Batman would never cross that line. Because if that was a possibility, Batman would have just rammed into him back on the street. But in a way, I don't think... I mean, even though I suppose the Joker could die, in a way, I think that he's sort of eternal, Like, I mean,
it's like...
Like, Jonathan Nolan kind of talked about him as like a trickster god.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, you have to look at it that way, because otherwise... Because of the... death count in this movie, you think for that reason alone that got to be
yeah.
I think that was a good decision to not kill the Joker.
I agree. Yeah.
It makes his villainy, if that's the right word, all the more powerful.
Absolutely.
That he still exists.
Yeah.
He's not gone.
Well, an interesting way, like the last time we see him, like is that laughter ringing out, that just haunting laughter.
Mm-hmm.
He's just kind of reveling in his victory, really.
Like, he doesn't care, because as long as he's alive, it's not over.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you can imagine a slight alteration of the script where, the Joker doesn't die, but Batman tries to kill him, so at least he's not complicit in this evil continuing on. No?
Wait. So,
I'm saying
so
he tried.
sorry, could you say
Look,
that again?
so in the narrative, Batman tries to kill the Joker, but the Joker, for whatever reason, doesn't die. There's a bunch of mattresses on the ground, or something happens,
Sure.
and he doesn't really die. But yeah, the Batman and all humanity really tried to get rid of evil by killing it.
See,
But it doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
So what is the value system here then? If that's true, that nominally the reason is that Batman thinks that the Joker's going to go to prison forever.
Yes,
which is
yes.
nonsense.
You'll be in a
Of
pound
course he
cell
won't,
forever.
because
Yeah.
we've seen already what he can do. So I don't know. It's an ambiguous ending morally, for sure.
Well, one thing that I heard that was interesting is there's some talk of why did Batman think it was okay to kill Ra's al Ghul but not okay to kill the Joker? And the answer I heard was that at the end of Batman Begins, Ra's al Ghul chooses to get on that train. His own choices put him there, whereas Batman throws the Joker off the top of the Pruitt building, and so it's if he let the Joker die, it would be
on him.
It would be a worse kind of murder, which
Well,
again, it's ethically shaky ground.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't know if I buy that philosophically, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
I don't know if I do either. Yeah, and I think that speaks to the idea that I think Batman thinks he has a code, but he is a vigilante.
He's also flawed. He's
Yeah.
as flawed as anybody else.
He is flawed. He is flawed. And he does a lot of this for selfish reasons,
But he has a good time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Gets to drive the Batpod.
That alone.
Harvey Dent was never going to kill himself, I don't believe. Yeah. There's a line in this scene. You thought we could be decent men in decent time. It's honestly one of my favorite lines in
That's
any
a nice
movie.
line.
Because it's it's speaking to the idea of Harvey is a guy who feels that the world is so bad that he feels you can't even be good anymore, and that's a real striking kind of hopelessness.
Yeah.
I once heard a critic who had some issues with this scene and didn't even feel like the movie really needed this scene. I wouldn't go that far, but I'm curious. What do you guys make of this last bit here?
Which bit?
Just the whole sequence with Harvey Dent taking the family hostage.
Obviously, they had to wrap up Harvey Dent's character arc.
Yeah, that's my feeling too.
Well, for me, anyways, it just underscores how Batman lost this entire fight.
Yeah.
He was trying to defeat the Joker. He didn't really do that. He was trying to save Harvey Dent. He didn't do that. So we're left with Batman running from the cops.
Yeah.
He's no longer the good guy in the story.
The only way to quote unquote win is to in a sense destroy himself.
And I think that kind of ambiguity is really what makes the engine of this stuff go on. Because it is ambiguous and it is intriguing and it's hard to figure out. And people like to think that way or wonder about it or have an ethical discussion which you otherwise wouldn't really have.
I do really believe that a great movie is the beginning of a discussion, not the end. And
I agree.
This is case in point.
Yeah, because it makes you think.
Of course, we're about to come up on the lie for the greater good, and that's a really persistent Nolan theme, and even going into Dunkirk when Mark Rylance's son lies to Cillian Murphy, the boy's going to be fine.
Yeah.
I think, and Mark Rylance gives him an approving nod. I think in a sense, Nolan isn't just depicting that idea. I think he actually kind of believes it. And
I agree with you. I agree.
And it's not surprising that, a great storyteller would believe that because, what are stories if not great lies that, are created to entertain us and maybe to enlighten us as well.
And a certain kind of generosity, that things aren't cut and dried, that
Yeah.
there are other perspectives, other ways of looking at it.
Absolutely. Nothing less than a knight shining.
All right. Good fire axe. That's great. No more messages in the sky for you, Batman.
Yeah. Oh no, what's Adam West gonna do? This is an interesting choice here that Alfred makes. I forgot to mention earlier, I love the shot of Lucius Fox taking off his jacket and sitting down before those computers as he's getting ready to hunt down the Joker, kind of like, this is the moment. And then it ends here with him walking out, having kind of completed his task. There's something very poetic about that.
How much does it cost to get Morgan Freeman in a movie? Because if you do get him in the movie, then that just ups the chances that it's going to be great enough, at least.
Honestly, I mean, at least for Batman Begins, I'll bet it costs more than Christian Bale.
Is that the case?
I don't know. I'm just speculating, but I mean, Morgan Freeman.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So he's run away from the dogs now.
Yeah. A lot of dogs in this movie. It really begins and ends with dogs. And then, of course, a dog chasing cars.
All right.
And then this last shot of him rising up, I don't know if that's the light of the street or the sun, but it's beautiful.
And that is what we should all think.
Yeah.
The silent guardian.
Wow, that just breezed by.
It's such a long movie. I thought this. I was surprised like how quickly that went by. Like it's.
Mm-hmm.
Emma Thomas. That's the Emma Thomas, the actress, or do we know?
Oh, you're thinking of Emma Thompson?
Oh, Emma Thompson, of course.
So it's Emma Thomas is married to Christopher Nolan.
Oh, really?
She's produced or worked on all his movies. They started dating back when he was at University College London, and I mean she's a really integral part of the whole Nolan team, and I know that she she holds him accountable. Like when he wanted to he had this crazy idea to shoot Dunkirk without a script, and she was the one who told him, no, write a script.
Not for my money, you don't do that.
Yeah.
If you're doing your own independent art film with like a handful of people, fine.
Yeah.
And a giant Hollywood blockbuster, that's
You want to do your indie project, knock yourself out.
Especially in a movie with a lot of explosions, no.
Yeah.
The insurance companies will have a cow.
Oh,
If you went that route.
Yeah. He said one time that Dunkirk was the most difficult film he's ever done.
I could see it.
It's interesting, yeah, because I was thinking like really more difficult than something like this, but that's an even crazier, tighter narrative structure.
Oh, he jumped off a cliff. He took a lot of risks to make Dunkirk, I think.
Well, it was one of the only times he did not have like a kind of a marquee name.
Yeah, and how do you know that how can you bring enough consequence even to that? I mean, obviously it's the war, yes, everybody's being evacuated, but scene for scene, how would you possibly keep people interested? And that's self-confidence, that's believing in yourself, and he pulled it off beautifully.
Yeah. But one thing I think is worth mentioning, we just saw the dedication to Heath Ledger and Conway Wycliffe. Conway Wycliffe was a stuntman who died. making this movie.
During the shoot.
Yeah, and Chris...
Camera's rolling.
Yep, Chris Corbel, the special effects supervisor, he was tried for manslaughter.
What?
Yeah, he was. He didn't. He got off scot-free, but the really interesting thing is this whole thing dragged on for years. Chris Corbel won an Oscar for the effects on Inception, so he went from the Oscars to a couple days later to court to his trial for manslaughter.
What was the incident? What do you know?
I don't know.
What happened?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, it's a little scary to think of what's required to pull off these movies.
Exactly. I mean, sometimes I'm sure they are falling 20 feet or more, maybe. I don't know.
Well, I'm sure you guys heard about a stunt woman died on the set of Deadpool 2.
No.
Doing a motorcycle stunt that she really should not have been made to do. So
Wow.
there's a lot of ethical concerns.
I think we really only hear about these things when it's the actual actor or high-profile person who dies, right? We don't really hear about the little minions.
Right, you're absolutely right. Yeah,
Which is
the power
shame.
structure of Hollywood. Yeah.
Tarantino and Kill Bill 2. What was the situation where the star, whose name is escaping me right now,
pushed Uma Thurman to do some stunt driving she really shouldn't have been doing, and she permanently damaged her body.
Ended up getting seriously injured.
Yeah.
But stunt work, man.
So, before we get to the end of the credits here, where would you? You don't have to tell me hard and fast, but just roughly, where would you rank this movie in Nolan's filmography?
I'd have to say pretty high because of the emotional impact it has. Yeah, there's a lot of bells and whistles that actually tend to detract. They pull it down in some ways. I mean, for me anyway, my value system, get rid of some of the explosions. But the tension and the emotional investment that is so clear in the writing and in the way it's produced, where it sucks you in and makes you literally think about evil.
Yeah.
That's pretty damn powerful to me.
I think you're right. I think this is the model of a story-driven action film.
Yeah.
What about you, Patrick?
I'd put it at the same level as, what is it? Insomnia. I would put it maybe around the same level as that. I don't know that it's better than Inception or The Prestige or Dunkirk. But outside of his filmography, I mean, I would say his Batman Begins and Returns is probably responsible for this revival of the superhero movie as as Hollywood's big money maker.
Well, it took it to the next level.
It did. It totally did, and it's funny how a lot of these newer superhero movies, they fall flat compared to it.
Yeah.
They still haven't been able to bring it up to the level that Chris Nolan brought it up to.
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at a movie like this, you desperately care what happens to these characters.
Yeah.
Because their emotions are so real. Like you were talking about emotional impact, Jim. The threat is so real. Like I feel for them and I fear for them every time I watch this. That's certainly not true of the overwhelming majority of the recent superhero movies.
And we and almost everyone in the world is insulated from a lot of the movies that might have a lot of money behind them and even talented people, but they turn into duds.
Right.
But this had magic to it.
I think what it really boils down to is just that, Chris Nolan, John Nolan, Emma Thomas, they just had an intimate knowledge of the characters that they were dealing with. Yeah. And I have a feeling it just seems like a lot of this Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, it's just like a machine to make money, It is. It's like they're just showing up to work to do it, Yeah. Whereas this is like really creatively inspired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you look at like Marvel, like one movie I love making fun of is Thor Ragnarok, because I think it kind of takes my breath away how, to my mind, overrated that movie is. That movie, I feel like there are a lot of like all these moments in there that are specifically there just to be amusing, you know, like or to be entertaining, like even if they don't organically work as a part of the story. And here, like, you know, well, I mean, like, yeah, I would cut that moment with the little kids going, you know, but like, as a complete piece of art, I think one of you used this phrase before. It sucks you in. You know, it's very clean,
It
very
makes
good.
it adds character, a level of character to these movies where they're not trying to gloss it so much, you know, and polish it so much.
Yeah.
Like you can tell the filmmaker really wanted to do it.
Yeah.
I think there's something ineffable about talent itself, though. I watched a documentary on Spielberg, and he made a lot of movies that weren't that good, like The Color Purple and stuff like that. But on the whole, he brought it so many times. He made great movies so many times. I mean, from Jaws on, or from, what was the one before Jaws? I can't remember the name right now.
Oh, a Duel or the Sugarland Express?
Sugarland Express, yeah. Anyway, I mean, gotta give it up for talent.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Nolan is a very different kind of filmmaker than Spielberg, but, you know, I mean, I think about, like, you know, like his movies, you know, and even the ones, like, I'm not as big a fan of. I've seen countless times. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, it's like there is always something there. There's always something to think about. There's always something to be entertained by. There's always something to be moved by. I mean, it's you know, you guys, I think, both mentioned Insomnia. You know, well, Insomnia like isn't talked about nearly as much as Memento, but I mean
it's a great movie.
It is. It's dynamite. I mean, like, you know, when you see him, you know, as a great stars director, like handling just Al Pacino and Robin Williams.
And both of those guys doing it's just a magnificent film. Yeah, it's kind of a small movie, but it's beautifully done and photographed, and the scenery is amazing. I mean, everything is great in Insomnia, I think.
I don't. Out of a lot of filmmakers, I would say Chris Nolan is probably the only filmmaker that I like where he doesn't have a film that I don't like. Like, I like all of them.
Yeah, you know, it's funny, like, I think, like I'm not as, like, into The Prestige as some people, but then I think, like, well, I wouldn't say I don't like The Prestige. I mean, when I watch it, I enjoy it quite a bit and find it very engrossing. Sure. You know, and it's like, if that's the least of his movies, well, then, I mean, it's like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, you know, Darren Aronofsky, the least of his movies, that's probably like Noah.
Right.
Or something,
yeah,
you know, like, that's a whole different different kind of thing. Like, but,
right.
I mean, yeah. Or even, like Following, you know, the first Nolan one, like, that's you know, yeah, you could argue that movie's, like, simplistic and not as thought-provoking in some ways. The kind of the non-linear narrative isn't as well-crafted as it is in Memento, which he did next, but it's like, I mean, that's a movie he made, like, as a kid in college, like, on weekends when he had free time from his job, and it's better than most movies, like, by, like, you know, more experienced directors, you know. I mean, Brett Ratner, you know, probably rarely ever made a movie even half that good, you know, and all the resources he had.
You know, I saw Barry Levinson's Paterno, which is an HBO movie. And yeah, I've been thinking of Pacino as a kind of a caricature of himself. I mean, he seems to overact some of the time, but man, if it was Barry Levinson that brought him down, that you ought to watch it. I mean, it's sort of made for TV,
Mm-hmm.
but it is just brilliantly done. You see
Nice.
a man who is so blinded by his ego and his fame and his success over so many years that he cannot see right before his eyes, I mean, how people are suffering, how abuse has infiltrated the whole program. But Levinson brings it out. I mean, and certainly Al Pacino does a great job on that movie.
Oh, he's absolutely brilliant. Yeah,
Yeah.
I could watch him forever.
Really, really, really good.
Do you guys have any more final Dark Knight thoughts, or shall we leave it at that?
My final thought is I've been thinking about this all week, but I wonder if Chris Nolan would ever come back to this space again. Not necessarily a Batman superhero movie, but something in lines of either James Bond or Mission Impossible, or this sort
in terms of like a
this
franchise,
kind of popcorn
like
type of movie. You know, I wonder if he would go back there, or if Dunkirk changed him to make even more serious films.
I think he will go back eventually. I think he's. I mean,
because even if Interstellar was sci-fi, it was pretty heavy on this topic matter.
Well, yeah, Interstellar in some ways is heavier than this because it's dealing with kind of a very like ordinary family in an extraordinary situation, and that makes it like tougher in some ways and more painful because it's dealing with that just these concepts like death and growing old, very primal things. I guess I think I mean, he's always like trying looking for that thing that's like a little different than what he did last. Because I remember like
oh, that's a good sign.
Yeah. So I remember after when I heard about Interstellar, I thought, another sci-fi movie with a one-word title that starts with the letter I. He's trying to do Inception again. It's like, wow, I was not right about that. And so with Dunkirk, I almost wonder if because it was so serious, he would want to do something more popcorn next.
Perhaps. Have you read anything about what his next project would be?
No.
He's probably keeping it tight to his chest.
Yeah. Well, something I think is interesting. I remember, I think it was after Interstellar, he did. He directed that short documentary Quay about the Quay brothers, the animators. And it was it's kind of like he has now. He seems like between movies he does these weird hobby projects, kind of for fun and
It's probably healthy.
I think it is healthy and kind of after Dunkirk and the awards campaign, which I imagine was quite stressful. Now he's he was going to India to promote film preservation, and now he's bringing some unaltered print of 2001 back to theaters. It seems like he's doing his more fun hobby projects, and then in a couple months, it'll be Christopher Nolan to make whatever starring Tom Hardy and Cillian Murphy. I mean, although I want to see him work with Michael Fassbender. I think that would be just a scorching team. I want to see him do a cop movie, a buddy cop movie with Tom Hardy and Michael Fassbender.
I'd say that.
I know, doesn't that sound good?
Yeah.
But if you compare Dunkirk to this Batman movie, to me they're on such a different level of artistic accomplishment. I don't think this movie would be long remembered, The Dark Knight, I mean, if it weren't for Heath Ledger's performance, which was spectacular. And the movie was very good in many ways, and it moves well, and it's cleverly written, and you have to give the concept itself, Heath Ledger or not, I think you have to give that concept to Christopher Nolan and his brother, but still, Dunkirk is a much more powerful movie, but that's my bias. Long movies that some people might consider dull, that reveal so much in the little tiny elements that when you add them all together just become greatness. And that's The Revenant was another one. Inarritu, is that how?
Oh Inarritu, yeah.
God, that's a beautiful movie. And I put Dunkirk and The Revenant on the same level, and I do not put The Dark Knight on that level.
Right, I agree with that.
Yeah, I don't either. Although I think Dunkirk and The Revenant are both kind of better, maybe more fully realized films.
Yes.
Although I will say, I think that I mean, you think about what makes The Dark Knight great. I mean, certainly Heath Ledger is kind of what puts it into the stratosphere. But I would argue that a lot of the success comes from, of course, the script, as you mentioned, but also from Michael Caine, from Eckhart. I think it's a pretty rich canvas.
I agree with you there. I think that's true.
Yeah.
Well, it's a strong movie, however you slice it.
Yeah.
It's just a good movie. I mean, here we are 10 years later watching it again.
I know,
and
yeah.
we're still
spending
entertained by it.
Yeah.
talking about it.
This movie was so long ago. I remember I was back in high school. I remember with friends and like someone bringing up that when some men just want to watch the world burn. We were talking about that during a play rehearsal or something. It's that's crazy. Here we are. We're still puzzling over the same questions, but also new ones that we found. I mean, that's
okay. I buy that. That's really a compliment.
That's something. I mean, I think we kind of touched on that last time. It's that in a way is like a test.
Can it stand the test of time?
Yeah, yeah.
There's
so many movies that I watch again and just a cringe fest.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh my God, I'll never forget when first time I watched the Phantom Menace as an older viewer. I'm yikes, I wouldn't say I really dislike the first Iron Man now, but when I watch it now, it doesn't nearly have the same magic for me as it did when I was I don't know, 17 years old.
It seems like a loss when that happens, but I guess it's inevitable. Maybe it's part of growth.
I guess, yeah. I think it is. You change, the movie changes as well.
But going back to The Dark Knight, you would never know that this movie was 10 years old. The only thing that gives its age away are the phones.
I was thinking
look at the phones.
Gordon's phone.
If they were to digitally remove the old phones and put iPhone 8 in there, you could tell somebody that this was released in 2018 and they'd believe you.
Yes.
Well, it's so
it's true.
It's so intense and so beautifully edited, and the kind of the fast pace, feels so still of the moment. It's amazing. Yeah, it's still,
that's true.
It still feels very
true.
fresh. Yeah. And I did think that about the phones as well. I guess that about wraps it up. If you like this podcast, and why wouldn't you? Please click thumbs up, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Indeed. Don't forget to like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at T.H.O Movie Reviews. Don't forget to check out all the great reviews and content we have at thomoviereviews.wordpress.com. Once again, I'm your host, Bennett Campbell Ferguson. I'm here with Jim Newman. I'm here with Patrick Belin. And from all of us here at T.H.O Movie Reviews, happy movie watching and happy 10th anniversary to The Dark Knight.